Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto become too powerful for his parents, and those who mistreated him. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The match between Natsumi Uzumaki and En of Kumo will now begin. Genma Shiranui, the proctor of the Chunin third exams, announced as he put a hand up before bringing it down to symbolize the start of the match. He quickly body flickered away so the two genin could fight without interference. In the Kage stands there was the fourth Hokage guarded by Tsunade and Jiraiya of the Sannin, the fourth Raikage guarded by the Jinchuriki Yujitoni and Killer Bee, the beautiful fifth Mizukage Meitarumi guarded by Chojuro, a new member of the seven ninja swordsmen of the mist, and Aoe Kiriumbu, who served as the Mizukage right-hand man. Finally, the fourth Kazekage was guarded by two jonin who were wearing unidentified masks. The crowd, being mostly Konoha citizens and ninjas, cheered loudly for the red-haired Jinchuriki, while the few Kumo audience members cheered for En. Natsumi, to her credit, merely smiled politely at the applause, while En just focused on Natsumi. En of Kumo was a handsome young man who had black hair and red eyes, but unlike a lot of the residents of Kumo, he had more fair skin similar to the Jonin Yujitoni. "So, you really have grown up, Natsumi?" En of Kumo asked with almost fondness in his tone the irritated red-haired Jinchuriki of Konoha. Natsumi was a beautiful red-haired 16-year-old woman who had inherited her mother's signature Uzumaki red hair, but instead of tying it in a ponytail, like her mother did in her younger years, or letting it just flow freely down her back, like her mother did currently, instead had chosen to wear her long red hair into two long pigtails that reached down the side of her face and flowed down to her waist, showing how long her hair was. She inherited her father's blue eyes but looked like a younger clone of Kushina in basically every other aspect. She had started to show her notable curves and bust, having a DD cup that was shown proudly in her Konoha outfit. She also added a thin layer of pink lipstick that made her lips seem even more attractive. Due to being born from a Jinchuriki, she had 3 small whisker markings on both of her cheek, which made her more cute and attractive in most people's eyes. She also had nice fair skin that, along with her beautiful curves, made her very popular in Konoha with people her age. Natsumi, along with being the daughter of the current Hokage, was also considered the hero of the leaf due to storing the power of the Kyuubi safely. "Go, Natsumi-chan. You got this. Show that nobody from Kumo how Konoha is the #1 village." The cheer crowded as most of the Konoha 12 suite dropped at how much the village worshipped the young woman. And too, even Minato and Kushina couldn't help but sweat drop at the worship, while the people looked incredulous at the worship of the Jinchuriki. Has that girl had to suffer at all in her life? This is more sucking up rather the actual respect in my eyes. Yujitoni, the Jinchuriki of the Two Tails and one of the bodyguards to the fourth Raikage, thought somewhat sourly. While the fifth Mizukage seemed to clap politely towards both contestants, it was obvious the overall bias between the Kage of Konoha and Kumo, and who they favored along with their bodyguards. "Tough luck to your genin, Raikage? Our Natsumi-chan is going to clinch and be the winner of the entire tournament," Jiraiya bragged as the Raikage resisted the urge to facepalm at the eccentric Sannin. Tsunade flicked him on the forehead for being rude but couldn't help her own smile of pride when she gazed down at Natsumi, her beloved goddaughter. "Forgive Jiraiya-sensei. He can be a bit blunt at times, Raikage-sama." Minato apologized with a slight bow. Yujitoni chose to speak for her Raikage as she waved her hand out in dismissal. "You don't need to apologize, Hokage-sama. Kumo has eccentric people too. We are used to people like him," Yujito stated, flatly glaring when Jiraiya ogled her, even when Tsunade bonked him on the face. Yujitoni was a beautiful mature blonde Jinchuriki with dark eyes, and her hair was tied into a long ponytail that ran down to her bum with a single white ribbon. She wore a dark shade of red lipstick that she seemed to have the same shade for her fingernails as well. She had a good number of followers and fans in Kumo, which she mostly ignored, which oddly enough seemed to encourage her fans to love her more. Yujito was about 23 years old, and her beauty was rather well known in Kumo, and even in Konoha she caught people's eyes as she walked. "Anyways, Hokage-sama, the one you need to worry about is En. He is going to win the tournament," Raikage declared proudly, with Yujito and Killer Bee nodding eagerly. Minato raised an eyebrow as Tsunade and Jiraiya shared a look of disbelief. However, Minato knew as Hokage he had to not play favorites and be polite. "To the best genin then," Minato stated diplomatically, while the Raikage merely grunted and nodded. Unseen to the people from Konoha or Suna, the beautiful Mizukage Meitarumi merely smirked as she gazed down at En with a look of pride and affection. "Oh, you shall know very soon, Hokage-sama. En is definitely the most powerful genin alive," Mei thought mysteriously. Mei was considered an incredibly beautiful woman comparable to Tsunade herself in her prime. She had green eyes and long auburn hair that reached all the way down to her ankles tied in a bun at the very top of her head. She had notable red lipstick and pink fingernail polish. She wore a modified version of her Mizukage outfit, being a dark blue dress that exposed her very large. The dress only covered the lower half of her, and exposed her shoulder with long sleeves for the rest of her arms. She also had some high-heeled sandals that, like Natsumi, exposed her painted pink toenail polish. However, Natsumi herself seemed to barely register the worship and outright love given to her, as she could only focus on En, who was addressing her so familiarly. She also felt like the foreign genin was hitting on her, which she had more than enough from people in her own village. "Hey you! Just because you say my name fondly doesn't mean I will go out with you. I get enough of people hitting on me like Kibabaka over there," Natsumi claimed as she threw several kunai at En, who merely dodged with ease, moving his head several times to make the kunai fly past him. En threw his own shuriken in reply as Natsumi bent her head back at a 45-degree angle so the shuriken flew over her as she pressed her back and waist back. She pressed her hands back as she back-flipped several times, showing her natural flexibility. En merely smiled as he ducked when Natsumi used a body flicker to appear behind him with her leg raised in a sweeping kick. I wonder if she notices moves like that will give any guy a nice look at her thighs in those tight short shorts. Or is that her game? Trying to be seductive without being obvious to get guys to let their guard down to check her out instead of the sword in her hand. And thought with amusement as her tight shorts really brought out how thick her thighs were, especially when she was giving him almost an upskirt look from the high kick. She stepped back to get some distance when he slashed at her with his sword. Natsumi growled as she made some quick hand signs and took a deep breath. "Fire style, fireball jutsu," Natsumi yelled, having been taught the basics of the jutsu from Sasuke when she pestered him for days until he agreed. And merely raised an eyebrow as the medium-sized fireball shot towards him as several people in the crowd started to sweat, specifically the civilians. And also made quick hand signs as he waved a hand towards the fireball. "Water style, water wall jutsu," and replied calmly as water gathered from the air and formed a wall of water as a shield. The fireball was swallowed up in the water wall and only caused a small portion to evaporate. Several of the jonin could not help but whistle, impressed by the Kumo genin. That is pretty impressive for his age. He already can do water style without a known source, and that is pretty advanced for genin. I mean, Natsumi-chan was trained by Hokage-sama, and a lot of the best of Konoha, and Ensan seems to be holding his own," Kurenai noted, although she briefly frowned. "Why do I feel like I am missing something? I must be overthinking this," Kurenai thought as she shook her head and focused back on the match. "He isn't bad, but Natsumi still has a trick or two up her sleeve. I gotta say it's tough luck for that Gaki down there. He might have become Chunin if he didn't have to fight Natsumi." Kakashi mused, barely looking up from his Ika violence book, much to Kurenai's annoyance that the older jonin was very blatant and uncaring about reading smut in public. It was rather clear Kakashi was at least somewhat biased in favor of his student, and the daughter of his own sensei, not that anyone in Konoha could exactly fault him. Natsumi was the golden child of Konoha, being the Jinchuriki of the pure power of the Kyuubi. Before Natsumi could react, and made more hand signs as he shifted to look at Natsumi. "Water style, great vortex jutsu," and yelled as he converted the existing water into a massive projectile which he shot at Natsumi at high speed. The jonin were shocked at the high-level water style used by a genin, as Natsumi didn't have time to form her own signs, so she merely put chakra to her feet and braced herself, covering her face with her arms. The water bullet was large and fast enough it crashed into Natsumi, making her scream in pain as her chakra anchored her to the ground for a few moments before the waves were too much. She was sent flying with the water into the stand, making her gasp and grunt. And seeing the wall starting to crack from the strain of the water, lifted up his arm. Much to Natsumi's relief, as the water followed his arm and flew into the air and into the distance to land far away as she panted from the strain. "Damn it. I will admit you are tough, but even so I am not dating you," Natsumi claimed, panting as she shivered a bit from how cold the water was that had soaked through her clothing. And smiled in amusement, although despite himself he briefly looked at her chest, which was quite notably due to how wet her clothes were, and how the wet clothing clung to her skin and highlighted every one of her curves and large even more. Kakashi, sensing the danger, decided to step in somewhat. "Natsumi, heat yourself up. Your clothes are too wet," Kakashi warned as Natsumi's face turned red when she looked down only to see her hard. The water had made her orange crop top stretch over her large, exposing her stomach even more. Much to the annoyance of her embarrassed father and worried mother, Natsumi seemed to have developed one notable rebellious spark. That was her outfit not being anything resembling a normal ninja outfit. Natsumi had tied up her hair into the ponytails using blue scrunchies and kept it out of her forehead using a normal Kona headband, which oddly enough made her attractive face even more desirable. Oddly, she also insisted on wearing a white flower on the right side of her hair above the scrunchie and another on the other scrunchie. Each flower had 5 petals with blue-white petals and a white center. The flowers confused her parents, but Natsumi absolutely refused to wear any outfit if she couldn't have them on at all times, even when she slept. And 3. She wore an orange crop top which seemed a few sizes too small due to large DD cup which exposed most of her well-toned stomach and her hips. Her hourglass figure with tiny waist and wide hips were fully exposed due to how short her crop top was. She then wore remarkably tight and small black short shorts that clung to her firm and round but with a silver belt to keep them on her wide hips. She did not bother to wear any sort of stockings or socks like most kunoichi chose to, leaving her long slender legs exposed until they reached her modified black ninja boots that went up to nearly her knees. This made a majority of her legs exposed, much to her fans' joy. The boots were odd in the sense they had a gap in the front allowing her painted blue toenails to be seen and a small heel at the back allowing her to have an extra inch in height. Despite how impractical and sensual the outfit was to most people, Natsumi seemed to have adapted specifically this outfit, allowing her most maneuverability due to her natural reflexes and ability to stretch. Damn it! I need to make some sort of fire style or wind style to clear this water off me. I am humiliated in my own village as I can tell those creeps in the stands are getting a free show of me being soaking wet. Natsumi raged out as she had crossed her arms over her wet, trying to hide them even as she was red-faced at all the cat calls. I told her that outfit was impractical, but did she listen? Nope. I swear that kid will be the death of me, Minato stated flatly as he face-palmed at his daughter's predicament. Tsunade was growling at Jiraiya, who despite himself was not so subtly checking out the blonde as she smashed his face inwards using the back of her hand. Pervert. She is your goddaughter and all you can think about is her chest when she is getting ogled? Tsunade screamed in outrage as Jiraiya rubbed his face, groaning in pain. Sorry, Tsunadeheim. Old habits die hard, Jiraiya claimed as he intentionally avoided his student's disapproving look as well. The Mizukage giggled in amusement, while the Kazekage was silent. The people from Kumo were focused on En as if they were waiting for his reaction. En actually looked rather annoyed at the starring and leering sent towards Natsumi as if he was personally offended. Seems jealous to me, Yujito mused with amusement with a smirk growing on her pretty face. And waved his hand as a burst of warm air surrounded Natsumi, making her gasp as her clothes dried up instantly, and she even felt a pleasant breeze on her face. The crowd seemed rather disappointed to no longer get to see the beautiful young woman in wet clothes that clung to her developing measurements. Natsumi blinked in confusion, while En just gave a polite look. Why did you do that? Not that I am complaining or anything, it's just odd to see someone from another village help out a rival like that, Natsumi asked with a slight frown as her pride made it hard for her to give thanks for something she could have done herself. Plus, I only got wet clothes because that jerk used that high-speed water style in the first place, Natsumi justified with a chibi version of herself, pouting and somewhat smug seemingly due to finding a justification on not thanking En. En just shrugged before he unsheathed his sword, making Natsumi narrow her eyes as she summoned a sword onto her hip with a burst of chakra. En black sword swung against Natsumi's silver sword as they slashed at each other. Clang! 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 Rang out the swords as they continued to hit each other as En and Natsumi continued to swing and parry each other's strike. They were slashes of black and silver reflected in the air. The crowd cheered at the display, but it was clear by the cheers they were mostly cheering for Natsumi. Natsumi swung high as En ducked onto a knee to avoid the strike. En retaliated with a two-hand strike from below, forcing Natsumi to use both hands to block, although it was clear that Natsumi was struggling to keep the deadlock from her end. Damn! He is strong and fast, Natsumi thought as she grit her teeth as she was slowly getting pushed back from En's seemingly superior strength. En's eyes seemed to shine as he spotted a weakness in Natsumi's stance, and took his left hand from the sword, making his grip slacken slightly to Natsumi's surprise. Before she could take advantage on the change in stance, En spun on his foot. This allowed him to slip through Natsumi's guard to slam his left elbow in her stomach. Natsumi coughed as the solid blow made her stumble in pain as her grip on her sword slackened from the pain. En advanced, spinning again to get closer to her, as he grabbed her right wrist using his right hand and put his foot in between her 2 feet. This close range allowed him to essentially make her immobilize as he pointed the blunt end of his sword at Natsumi's cheek. Natsumi's eyes widened as she was essentially trapped in this situation. Natsumi's cheeks turned red when she realized that En was basically just a few inches from her lips, and she was not used to being this close to a male besides her own father. and sent her a smirk as he held onto her wrist and looked deep into her sky-blue eyes. Give up? There is no shame in giving up, you know? And asked as he briefly noted her red cheeks. Genma got ready to hop in as he looked between the contestants, mentally judging if the match was over. Natsumi's breathing got more shallow as she started to pant, partly due to the humiliation she was currently suffering and the fact she was embarrassed to be so close to En. What's wrong with me? En is my opponent, and yet my body is acting like he is my crush, and he is about to hold me in his arms, and not him trying to make me surrender. Natsumi thought angrily as she resisted putting a hand over her heart, as her heart seemed to be better 1,000 beats per minute as she bit her lip in frustration. The crowd was yelling for Natsumi to not quit and for the Kumo scum to unhand their blonde princess, as Natsumi started to get frustrated. You can take that surrender and shove it up your butt, Natsumi shouted as she felt a burst of chakra unleashed from inside of her. Natsumi's eyes turned red and her pupils became slits as she started to take on the QB power through a basic tailed beast transformation. Her teeth started to become cannon and her fingernails started to grow and become more claw-like. This is... and thought with wide eyes. Natsumi used her free-clawed left hand as she swiped at En, and swallowed as he leapt back after letting go of Natsumi's right hand. En's eyes looked up at Natsumi's clawed hand as he could feel the air get cut as he barely avoided having his hair cut from the clawed strike even as he leapt back. Close one. That I guess shouldn't have been unexpected. And thought as swung his sword a few times as he watched Natsumi panting. Natsumi bit her lip as she seemed to have regained control of herself as the QB chakra receded back into her seal and the physical changes vanished as her eyes turned back into blue and her teeth and nails turned back into normal sizes. Damn it! I was starting to lose control again. I need to remain calm or I will lose control over the QB power inside me like Ka-chan. Natsumi thought in frustration before she smirked. At least that power allowed me to get out of his grasp and force him away. One thing I guess I am thankful for. Natsumi thought proudly as she swung her sword a few times in mid-air. I see the fact she is actively trying to hold back the QB chakra inside herself means she doesn't actually have control over it. And thought as he felt the surge in QB chakra recede after her strike against her. Unseen to others, a slight red aura surrounded Natsumi for the moment she went for the strike, but it had a notable black outline that only En saw due to his close proximity. Natsumi prepared to make hand signs before En dashed towards her with his arms back looking like an eagle as he increased his speed. Natsumi's eyes widened as she placed her hands together, but then she grunted as En neared her and slapped her hands apart with an open palm. Natsumi was forced onto the back foot as En continued to use taijutsu with his hands to prevent her from weaving signs correctly. And 4. While the audience was still cheering on Natsumi, claiming that she would defeat the Kumo trash with ease, the jonin were watching with much more weary looks. En is attacking her in the small intervals she needs to weave signs, making her unable to mold her chakra for jutsu. That takes a great deal of training to watch for these small gaps. Mike Guy noted with a look that was both solemn and impressed. Matter of fact, I thought only someone with a Sharingan like Kakashi could hit at these moments. Guy noted as he glanced at his eternal rival, who was now barely paying attention to his book and now focused on the fight between En and Natsumi. That kid is something else. Definitely not a run-of-the-mill genin. I can see why the Reikage chose him to participate in this year's Chunin exams. He is something else. Asuma added in with an impressed whistle. Kakashi was gritting his teeth behind his mask as he watched En send a hard kick at Natsumi's stomach, which she was forced to guard using both hands. Natsumi winced as the force of the kick still managed to hurt despite her guard. She cried out when En used this opportunity to give a punch to her cheek, and then used his left hand to slam his fist into her stomach when she winced. He finished the barrage by kicking her away again. En started to dash forward, but Natsumi managed to grab a few kunai with exploding notes and threw them at him while she was getting sent away. En stopped his dash as he back-flipped, avoiding the kunai and resulting explosions, but this did give time for Natsumi to catch her breath as she eventually flipped over and used her hand to slow down the force sent her way. She then slipped down so both her feet and her hands were on the floor even as she was getting pushed back from the kick. Natsumi then used chakra to her hand and feet, allowing her to stop herself and get back on her feet. Despite her efforts, that single kick did send her quite far away from En, showing his strength. You are good. I will admit nobody from Konoha in our age group probably holds a candle to you, as I am getting pushed back after all. Natsumi admitted with just the slightest bit of pride in her own abilities. Niji Hyuga and Sasuke Uchiha glared at her for her remark, while Tenten and Sakura respectively tried to calm down the dojutsu prodigies. The other members of the Konoha 12 were gaping at the battle between Natsumi and En. Okay, I know Natsumi is on a different level to us, but this guy is just as good if not better than her, Shikamaru noted as he watched Natsumi touch her bruised cheek. Ino and Sakura shook their heads as they crossed their arms in denial. Hey! Watch what you are saying! Natsumi is the golden child of Kona. There is no way she can be beaten by someone from Kumo. Ino snapped as Sakura nodded just as well. Yeah. Natsumi is one of the last Uzumaki. She isn't quite as good as Sasuke-kun, but she is still top tier. Sakura insisted while Shikamaru rolled his eyes. Just because you are one of the last of a clan doesn't mean you are all powerful. I mean, Itachi-san is still leagues stronger than Sasuke despite them being one of the last 3 Uchiha left. Shikamaru thought drily as he watched Sasuke grit his teeth at the display shown in front of him. And 5. Choji was just munching on his chips seemingly at ease. Rock Lee was watching their taijutsu with narrowed eyes. Hinata was looking down at Natsumi with slight worry even as Natsumi bruises healed due to her Uzumaki heritage and Kubi chakra inside of her. Kiba was cheering for Natsumi, but he was also checking out his crush Natsumi, whose outfit and body was definitely his type. Well, Natsumi, you got this. When you beat that Kumo jerk we can go on a date. Kiba cheered as Akamaru barked in agreement. And when we are on enough dates you can see how only I can be your alpha and treat you right. You are the only woman for me, being the daughter of Lord Fourth and Lady Uzumaki. Kiba thought dreamily as he could imagine an older Natsumi and himself in a bed together with only a blanket covering them. This, however, seemed to irritate the red-headed Jinchuriki as she turned her head to glare at Kiba with annoyance clearly on her face. She upped dog breath. I wouldn't date you if you were the last male in Kona. I would rather be alone than with you. How many times do I have to reject you before you get the message? Natsumi screamed at Kiba. Kiba, however, only seemed to think Natsumi was playing hard to get, and winked at her much to her disgust. Hinata and Shino just sighed at their clueless and in denial teammate. Poor Natsumi-chan. She constantly gets all this attention because she is Lord Hokage's daughter and has people like Kiba-kun more interested in getting in her bed than getting to know her on a personal level. Getting to know the real her. Hinata thought sadly, as was one of Natsumi's only true friends who didn't see her title and parents before seeing the girl herself. And patiently stood there with an amused look as he watched the redhead getting annoyed at her former classmate. Fanbas? I can't say I get a lot of them in Kumo, but Yujito-san up there has a lot. She probably is the most popular kunoichi in Kumo and has a very dedicated fan club who are not quite as bad that guy. But that's probably because Yujito-san is very good at telling people no. And remarked grinning when he saw Yujito glare at him. You are so dead next time we are alone. Yujito's eyes screamed at him while she ignored the chuckles from A and B and the giggles from the 5th Mizukage Mei. No need to be embarrassed, Yujito-san. Men will always be attracted to strong women like us, but the trick is to show the lechers who is boss and how to back off. Except for the men we can trust after all. Mei noted sweetly as Yujito sighed and nodded in appreciation. Right, Jiraiya-san? I know despite your reputation you would never try to look at myself or Yujito-san indecently, like in the hot springs for example? If you did, then I would have no choice but to use lava style to discipline you. Mei asked sweetly with her eyes closed and a kind smile. However, the men including Jiraiya in the booth felt a demonic-like aura that made them shudder. Haha, of course not. I know when women say no, Jiraiya claimed as he started to sweat as he looked away from Tsunade, Mei and Yujito glares. Okay, there really is nothing like a woman's scorn. They can be more scary than a tailed beast after all. Is that why the challenge of seeing them so exciting? Jiraiya mused as he made a mental note not to peek while Mei Terumi was in the hot springs. Jiraiya was the man who considered nearly dying from Tsunade beating him to an inch of his life a worthwhile trade to peek on her in the hot springs. So, it is possible he would consider the reward of seeing Mei Terumi and or Yujito ni naked worth the risk of being burned in lava. The hot-headed Natsumi grit her teeth when En seemed so at ease, he could look away and even casually chat with someone in the stands. Don't look down at me, team. I am going to kick your ass, Natsumi declared angrily as her red hair seemed to levitate on its own. Minato glanced over at Kushina, who was cheering on their daughter. She really is Kushina's daughter. Just as angry as her mother. Minato thought with a sweat drop, as it was a habit that Kushina herself did not seem to notice she had. Natsumi quickly made the hand sign, putting her index and middle fingers together, and formed a cross with both hands. Multi-shadow clone jutsu, Natsumi yelled as there was a burst of chakra and smoke surrounding her. After the cloud cleared, there was about 3 dozen Natsumi clones armed each with a kunai as they grinned at En. How that is quite a few clones. I have heard that the shadow clone jutsu created by the second Hokage Tobirama Senju-san uses a lot of chakra, so the fact you can create so many clones shows how much chakra you have, Natsumi. En mused as he looked around, seeing them bring their kunai to their chests as they got ready to dash. Heh! You won't be so calm when we kick your ass, one of the clones declared as they cheered. The crowd was cheering loudly at the Uzumaki princess showing off by Shikamaru narrowed his eyes as he was focused on En. He seems to know quite about the shadow clone jutsu for someone in Kumo honestly. I don't know if there are a lot of people here in Konoha itself that still remembers that it was Lord Second who created the jutsu and not that it was just a high-level clone. Just who are you, En? Shikamaru thought in wonder. En looked around as he flicked his wrist as if he was considering bringing back his sword before shrugging as he put one hand on his hip and the other in front of him. Well, come on, Natsumi. Let's see what you can do, En taunted as he used his right hand with the come on motion and a smirk on his face. 5 of Natsumi clones roared as they dashed forward with their kunai flashing in the light towards the amused En, and ducked under the slash of one of the clones before pivoting, delivering a kick that destroyed the clone, leaving a puff of smoke behind. He easily grabbed the wrists of 2 of Natsumi clones before they stabbed him and tossed them aside just as the other 2 clones got into range to stab him. And spun on his foot, making the clones past him, but then he sent 2 quick jabs with his elbows, sending them into the ground and dispersing them from the impact. The other 2 clones had managed to recover in midair as they threw their kunai at En back. The clones grunted as they got shuriken in the chest and dispersed for their actions. En put a hand on his kunai pouch and managed to grab 2 explosion notes in the same moment. He grabbed the kunai out of midair without looking and flicked the redirected kunai into the ground. He leapt up just as 5 of Natsumi's clones came out of the ground and attempted to pull him into the ground. Natsumi growled as the explosion from the kunai destroyed the 5 clones in a fiery death. That makes 10 now. 26 left to go plus you, Natsumi. En commented cheerfully as he whistled a happy tone. Natsumi seemed to lose her patience as the rest of her clones dashed forward to overwhelm him in sheer numbers. En seemed perfectly at ease as he casually walked towards the dashing horde of clones. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 En thought as he mentally counted the clones he picked off. En dashed forward and sent a flying kick directly into a Natsumi clone, dispersing it instantly. Then he spun on heel, sending his foot in a wide kick that dispersed another 3 clones. One clone that tried to hit from behind got a backhanded fist for her trouble. 5 more clones sent a barrage of shuriken at En from all directions. En gave a mocking bow before he winked and vanished in a burst of lightning, having used a lightning body flicker to vanish and appear on the other side of the stadium. And then waved his hand as wind appeared, making the shuriken fly faster and destroy the clones that weren't quick enough to get away. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 En counted as 6 unlucky clones were destroyed from that technical friendly fire. While the crowd was booing, the more rational and analytical genin like Sasuke, Niji, and Shikamaru had narrowed their eyes at the ease En was defeating Natsumi's clones. This is more like a jonin fighting rather than a genin. He doesn't have any wasted movements, and he is not using any more energy than is absolutely needed. He is even able to turn the clones' attacks against each other. He is taking advantage of the fact they are all his enemies and they have to worry about friendly fire while all his attacks help him out. Shikamaru noted seeing Natsumi getting more and more frustrated while En was perfectly at ease. En faced 4 clones while avoiding their strikes and kicks while still standing in one spot. He ducked one clone's slash and placed a hand on her back while raising his knee up. This made the clone cough up as she was caught up in between his palm and his knee before dispersing. One of the other clones tried to make hand signs, but En dashed forward past the clone as he placed his hands on the ground with one clone head in each palm. They vanished as the final clone turned around to fire a jutsu at En, and merely leapt up and kicked the clone in the head. The clone grunted as she lost control of the fire chakra in her lungs, and that fire sprayed out like a flamethrower, destroyer 5 more clones as well before that clone was dispersed. Before the other 5 clones could do more than look at in dismay, kunai knives were sent into their heads, making them poof away. That makes 35 by my count. There should be 1 left with Natsumi back there. En thought as he cracked his knuckles and shifted his neck to get a crick in it. Natsumi and her remaining clone were gaping at the destruction caused by En, who had not even bothered to create a single clone of his own to take out over 30 of her own. Jiraiya and Tsunade were getting worried, but Minato was more worried about Natsumi losing control. Natsumi-chan has never been able to accept failure well. If this continues, she might draw on the Kyuubi power and go on a rampage, Minato thought in worry, as he resisted the urge to use Flying Raijin to be next to Natsumi and put a ceiling tag on her. Reikuje was grinning along with Yujito and Killer Bee, even as the crowd was in denial that their beloved Natsumi was losing in the slightest. This guy is unreal, am I going to lose? The real Natsumi thought as she started to shiver in fear. Flashback. Natsumi-chan. One day there will be a great catastrophe and a student of mine will be the one to stop it. I believed it was Minato, but him, and I agree it will be you one day. You have the power to surpass us both and save the world. Jiraiya told her warmly after one day of training where an exhausted Natsumi and him shared a popsicle together. Yeah, and one day I will be strong enough to find Big Brother and bring him home, Natsumi declared with her eyes full of determination. Jiraiya smiled at his young student's determination but had a look of great regret, guilt, and sorrow. Yeah, you will bring him back one day, Jiraiya replied with a half-hearted smile and thumb up. Back to present. That's right, I can't lose till then, I have to be strong, Natsumi groaned as she felt anger at being overpowered by someone her age. Inside of Natsumi, a dark brown-colored Kubi smirked as he felt her pull on his chakra. This child is so easy to manipulate, Kubi commented as he willingly sent his chakra through the seal into the red-haired female Jinchuriki. Natsumi and her remaining clone both felt the increase in strength from Kubi chakra as their teeth became more canine-like, their fingernails extended into claws and their eyes became red and slitted. Wind style, Natsumi clone yelled as she formed hand signs even as and casually walked over to them without a care in the world. Fire style, the real Natsumi yelled as she formed hand signs as well. Great breakthrough, clone Natsumi. Fireball Natsumi. Jutsu, yelled together as they blew out at the same time. Natsum clone shot a massive burst of wind with wide radius out of her mouth while the real Natsumi shot out a much larger fireball out of her mouth enhanced with the power of the Kubi. This is combination ninjutsu with her own clone, and shouted in surprise. The fireball combined with the wind to form a massive fire inferno the entire length of the wind which covered a majority of the entire arena. Luckily for the audience and crowd there was a barrier ninjutsu that contained any jutsu to just the arena itself so stray attacks wouldn't hit anyone by accident. The Jonin looked wide-eyed at the destructive combination ninjutsu. Hey Kakashi, isn't this a bit extreme? I mean that Kumo kid isn't any enemy and Natsumi looks like she might kill him, Kurenai asked a wide-eyed Kakashi. Kakashi stumbled shocked at the level that Natsumi was willing to go. I know she is rash and everything, but would she really willing to go to this level just to win a match? Kakashi thought as he watched the entire arena seem to get lit up from the wind-enhanced fire. Is she using the Kubi power? She knows she hasn't got control over it yet, Kakashi rationalized as he put down his book and bit his lip under his mask. Minato was wide-eyed as he was prepared to use Flying Raijin to teleport into the stadium and then teleport out the flames using Flying Raijin, guiding thunder, but to his shock the Reikage and his guards did not seem concerned and more just interested in what En was doing. This is pretty hot. I could still avoid it, but it might give the impression I am afraid of these flames. En mused as the roaring wind-enhanced flames quickly came to him and surrounded him. En started to form hand signs and gather chakra. Water style, En stated before his eyes widened. En's eyes rolled back into his head as his hands stopped forming the signs. The flames surrounded him completely, but En had a devious smirk that seemed to be splitting his face open. The crowd became silent as En was completely smothered in the flames and disappeared as the fire surrounded him completely and burned. Did Natsumi-chan just kill that guy? Sakura asked after a moment of shock as the Kona 12 looked at the stadium in surprise. I mean, the rules did state killing was allowed, but I never thought that cheerful Natsumi would actually pull the trigger herself, Tenten noted while Niji just had his arms crossed. It can't be helped. She was pushed into a corner and had a lapse in judgment, Niji stated flatly, although his expression showed neither pleasure nor explicit approval. Even Kiba, who was clearly pro-Natsumi if only to try to get into her pants, was gaping at the destruction of Natsumi flames. Meanwhile, Natsumi panted as her shadow clone vanished due to the strain as she no longer sustained the flames or wind and it simply burned from the excess power. Natsumi then blinked when she realized nobody was cheering before her eyes were wide-eyed. Hey! Wait a minute! I didn't! He wasn't! Natsumi insisted as she realized her opponent was caught in the inferno of her wind-enhanced flames, which was also powered up from her Kubi chakra. This also shocked her out of the Kubi state as the chakra receded back into her seal and made her no longer bloodthirsty and slightly power-hungry. Genma Shirani had hidden himself in the corner of the stadium that was not lit in flames and then used the body flicker jutsu to appear next to Natsumi with a grim expression. It is a shame, but it can't be helped. Killing was warned many times in the rules, so Natsumi Uzumaki legally won her fight, Genma Shirani thought grimly. Genma stared at the inferno before sighing. Due to the circumstances of En of Kumo, I hereby declare that Natsumi Uzumaki of Kona is the Genma stated as he was about to put a hand down to end the match in Natsumi victory. The crowd cheering stopped when they felt the pressure settle all across the entire stadium, including the Kage stand. The civilians started to pant in fear while the genin and chunin were wide-eyed at the new sensation. What is this? It feels like my body wants to crawl into a hole and hide. Why am I so afraid? Sasuke thought as he gulped, but he could tell the rest of his classmates were not doing much better. Sakura and Tenten had dropped to their knees in fear, while even Niji and Rock Lee were sweating and gripping their fists. This chakra, it can't be, Kakashi mumbled in disbelief as he flipped over his Kona headband so it no longer covered his left eye. This activated his Sharingan as he gazed down at the inferno, in particular where En was standing. This cannot be. It was only supposed to be, and Hayashi Hyuga stated in disbelief before he blinked and focused chakra into his eyes. Byakugan, Hayashi thought as his visual jutsu activated and he zoomed into the inferno. Hayashi gasped, got his youngest daughter Hanabi to look at her father in concern. Father? Is something the matter? Hanabi asked in worry as Hayashi bit his lip before he put his hand on her shoulder as if to protect her. No matter what happens next, stay by my side. If this escalates, I will get your sister too, Hayashi told her firmly as Hanabi blinked but nodded. Yes, father. I will stay by your side, Hanabi promised before her eyes grew worried. Sister. What is happening? Hanabi thought in worry. The rest of the Konoha Jonin and elites got into defensive positions, while to Minato's surprise nobody from the Kumo or even Mizu looked remotely surprised at the chakra that was leaking out. Minato closed his eyes as he focused on sensory mode. This feels just like Natsumi-chan and Kushina's Kyuubi chakra? How is that possible? Minato thought before he narrowed his eyes and looked steely at the Reikage. Reikage-san. Please explain why En-san has the power of the Kyuubi. Do not insult me. My family is well aware of Kyuubi power, so do not pretend I cannot sense its chakra when it's leaking out like that, Minato asked calmly but with a stern look. Jiraiya and Tsunade stepped behind Minato as if waiting for a fight, while Yujito and Killer Bee looked at Reikage for instructions. Humph. Just wait, Hokage. Everything should be clear in just a few minutes. I don't have the patience to explain things to you if my underling will do it for everyone else, stated flatly as he gestured to the inferno, which was changing shape due to the chakra leaking out. Jiraiya frowned and was about to say something but Mei put her hand out. Please wait. Everything should be clear, so let us keep a calm head, Mei asked politely, but her smile showed she was not in the mood for arguments. Her guards also looked unsurprised, with Ao having the most tiny smile hidden as he gazed over at En. That kid. He always has to surprise everyone everywhere he goes, huh? Ao thought with a hint of affection despite his gruff attitude. Minato frowned and sighed as he put a hand down as Tsunade and Jiraiya reluctantly went back to their spots behind him. Natsumi was the one most affected as she felt like her body was both on fire and ice at the same time as she had to resist getting forced onto her knees and cover her stomach in pain. What is this? It feels like the Kyuubi inside of me is angry? No, excited? Why am I feeling emotions from it? It's just a mass of hatred and power inside of me, Natsumi thought as she winced as if the pain magnified for a moment. My other half is finally back, huh? How interesting. Time for those miserable humans to learn their lessons for throwing away him. The darker colored Kyuubi inside Natsumi thought with a dark grin before he frowned as if offended by Natsumi. I wonder if the other me is having a better time inside of him. This brat really has no idea what tailed beasts are. TCH. The idea she could actually control me is laughable. I would never work with someone like her. She is just like her mother and sees us as actual monsters that deserve to be locked up and used up. She might not want to use us like that damn Uchiha, but in my eyes she is no better. The darker colored Kyuubi thought bitterly as he sat down in his cage as an imagine of Natsumi, Kushina and finally Madara Uchiha appeared in his eyes, much to his disgust. I don't think you should call this a loss yet. Last time I checked I am still standing. A male voice shouted with amusement from the flames, but with a deeper tone, almost as if there was another voice mixed in. The voice itself also distinctly sounded different than En did before, sounding younger. What is this chakra? It almost feels like Genma mumbled as he briefly looked at the red-haired Jinchuiki Natsumi with surprise. Hey, what is going there? Why does your voice sound different? If you have the time to talk, then come out here and say it to my face, Databane, Natsumi demanded with distress as she used her mother verbal tick without realizing it. There seemed to be a whirlwind as the flames seemed to stretch out away from where En was before a red tail of chakra appeared and batted away the flames. Huh. My voice changed back? I guess there is no point keeping up the charade any longer. En mused with a deep growl-like voice as his tail whipped a shockwave, dispersing what remained of the flames away. Ginma and Natsumi covered their face as small pebbles flew at them from the shockwave, but they, along with rest of Koona, gaped at what came out of the flames. And was crouching with a notable red bubbling chakra-like cloak around him. It formed like a liquid and free-flowing skin surrounding him, complete with a chakra tail that was constantly moving like a real animal tail. The cloak formed around him to give him a fox-like appearance, as it formed around his hands like paws, with his hands themselves getting claw-like due to his fingernails increasing in length and becoming sharper. The cloak even had 2 fox-like ears on top of his head as the tail lazily moved on its own, swaying along with his chakra ears. What was most shocking, though, was that N no longer had black hair and red eyes, as his hair was now spiky blonde and his red slitted eyes were due to the chakra flowing through him. And also had 3 whisker marks on his cheeks like a certain Kyuubi Jinchuriki. "That's that boy! The Kyuubi child!" one Koona woman screamed in fear as she pointed at N, who just smirked. "I thought he died. Did it regain its powers? Impossible! Why has he returned to Koona?" Several civilians screamed, much to surprise of Minato's guards, while Minato was wide-eyed in shock. "Naruto? You are here?" Minato whispered in sheer disbelief that his missing son was right in front of him. "Is that really Naruto? How can that be? Even if he somehow was brought to Kumo, Natsumi is the one with the chakra, not him. He is supposed to only have the soul, so he cannot possibly form a chakra cloak like she can." Jiraiya thought, as no matter how happy he was at the idea of Naruto being alive, he was almost one of Minato's top advisors and had to think rationally. "Naruto?" Kushina screamed as she resisted to jump up and embrace her missing son this very instant. "Naruto, you came back?" Kakashi thought in sheer surprise, as didn't know what to do at this turn of events. Natsumi, however, shook her head in denial. "Who do you think you are? Pretending to be my brother? Huh! I am going to kick you ass for disgracing my brother like that!" Natsumi shouted in denial. "There is no way my brother has been in Kumo all this time. He is missing and I will find him. That can't be him, as I would never fight him. I would know in my heart if I thought my brother. I know it!" Natsumi thought, with her heart racing, as she could not accept the idea she'd been fighting her brother the entire time, and definitely could not accept the idea she almost killed him due to her recklessness. Natsumi anger allowed the Kyuubi inside of her to form her own chakra cloak, forming a version 1 chakra cloak around her like Naruto's own, with the only notable difference being a slight black aura along the red chakra itself. And 6. Natsumi roared as she sent a chakra arm of version 1 chakra at Naruto at high speed, who merely frowned and sighed. Naruto merely used his arm, which was bathed in his own version 1, to bat away the hand, showing his own chakra cloak was just as strong as Natsumi. The genin in the stands were gobstopped at Natsumi, and now the name Naruto powers. "Is this really Natsumi's powers? And that guy over there, he has the same powers as Natsumi?" Ino gulped with awe and a bit of fear, while Choji had his mouth in shock as well. "How is this possible? The adults told us that Natsumi was the hero, kept the power of Kyuubi safe, and she was the key to Konoha's salvation. Nobody ever did tell us what happened to the rest of the Kyuubi. Wait, it's been a while, but I do remember that Natsumi was supposed to have a brother, a twin. Is that guy her twin? They do look alike besides the hair color, but he does look almost identical to Lord 4th Hokage." Shikamaru analyzed as he narrowed his eyes. Neji and Sasuke had their Dojutsu Byakugan and Sharingan active at the same time, but they had to wince. That must be the power of the Kyuubi everyone is always talking about. The power that made Natsumi so special. It's so powerful and wild. Sasuke noted as he read an Enomorous chakra level coming from there. "I don't know how, but it feels and looks like that guy over there has the same chakra inside of him too." Neji noted as he saw similar red chakra inside of both of them, leaking out the chakra from their chakra points. "How is this possible? I thought Natsumi-chan had the full power of Kyuubi, or at least that was what we were told." Sakura asked as nobody had the answer, watching the two stare at each other with Natsumi look of anger clear. Meanwhile, in the stands next to his mother, albeit wearing his Umbu Weasel mask on, was Itachi Uchiha with Mikoto Uchiha. Mikoto had her hands over her mouth as she looked close to tears, while Itachi had his Sharingan activated underneath his mask. "Naruto-kun, I knew you must have survived that day, and I am glad you found some happiness away from here," Itachi stated with a tone of happiness and a smile under his mask. His mother and him were one of the few people who really took a chance to get to know Naruto while he lived in Konoha. "Naruto-kun, you were a Jinchuriki like Natsumi-chan as well? Did they know about this? They told us you were only the recipient of its soul, not chakra," Mikoto whispered, but she couldn't help a few gasps of relief and happiness. Minato was still in shock, happiness, and disbelief at his son returning, but the analytical part of him was watching the Nine Tails chakra surrounding both of his children with suspicion. "How is this possible? Lord Third specifically told us he separated the 9 tails into its soul, which he put into Naruto, and its chakra into Natsumi before he died. How is Naruto using 9 tails power then? We have been regularly checking Natsumi's seal and none of the chakra been leaking out, and being siphoned away like someone might think. Minato thought in worry. Stop wearing his face. I don't care what you call yourself, but don't you dare mock my brother! Natsumi roared as she prepared her fist for another assault. Sigh. You really have gotten strong, Sumi. Naruto commented with the Kyuubi chakra still making his voice deeper like it did with Natsumi. Natsumi stopped mid-punch even as she had dashed, so she was now almost point-blank range at Naruto. Sumi? Natsumi mumbled as she briefly remembered her brother calling her that in private before she growled, thinking this imposter was mocking her. Meanwhile in the stands, Kiba was sweating in fear as he remembered when he called her that. Don't you dare call me again. Nobody is allowed to call me that. Only him. Natsumi roared in anger as threw dozens of kunai and shuriken at him. Sorry. I just wanted to let you know we are close. Kiba screamed as this attempt at flirting seemed to have offended her much more than usual. Nobody is allowed to call me that. Only not someone like you, pervert. Natsumi screamed as she briefly had a look of pain and despair before anger, as she shot a dozen shuriken at the fleeing Kiba, who had to constantly jump and leap from the weapons. She was talking about her brother? The one that is right there? Kiba thought with a serious expression, with Shino glancing at him from the corner of his eyes. Natsumi briefly had a look of confusion even while Kyuubi chakra flowed through her and heightened her negative emotions greatly. That confusion faded as she glared with even more hate at Naruto as her chakra cloak seemed to vibrate and grow stronger, as Naruto briefly noticed the second slowly growing beside her first fully formed version 1 tail. You continue to mock my brother by taking his appearance and acting like him. I don't care about the contest anymore. I will wipe that look off your face. Natsumi declared. Her fox-like appearance grew even more prominent as her teeth grew bigger and her claws grew bigger, as well as more Kyuubi chakra flowed through her. Natsumi roared at him as Naruto in his single-tailed version 1 flipped back as the shockwave flew past him and hit the barrier. The civilians covered their faces. Even with the barrier there was slight wind hitting them. However, much to Naruto's disgust, their hatred still seemed aimed squarely at him as they continued to boo him and cheer on Natsumi. Sheesh, Natsumi is the one losing control of Kurama, and they still think I am the Kyuubi brat, huh? What hypocrites. They claim to be people living in the light, but anyone who doesn't fit their narrow perception is evil no matter what the reality is. Naruto thought glumly even as his version 1 cloak was stable while Natsumi's was growing stronger but more erratic as her Kurama pushed more chakra through her seal. Natsumi growled as chakra formed in the palm of her hand in the form of a sphere. Rasengan? Of course, you would know it and everything. Naruto commented before his eyes narrowed. Instead of the usual blue or yellow form, Natsumi's chakra took the Rasengan and Natsumi's hand started to form a dark purple as it slowly grew to the size of her hand. And 7. What the? This feels more like a mini-tailed beast bomb rather than a Rasengan? But she isn't in tailed beast mode or even version 2, Naruto thought as he saw the color of the chakra ball and felt the tailed beast chakra being formed and compressed. The other me must be controlling her chakra from her seal due to her heightened emotions. If I had to guess, he is even more grumpy than he, so any chance to force chakra through her seal he will take. The Kurama inside Naruto informed him helpfully. Want some help? Kurama asked with a lazy yawn, but Naruto shook his head. Nah. This is something I want to deal with Natsumi directly myself. Naruto replied as his eyes grew solemn. The Konoha Genin looked at Natsumi with fear and awe while Gaara of the Sand was grinning like it was his birthday, making everyone uneasy around him, especially his siblings Temari and Kankuro. The Jonin looked at each other unsure if they were supposed to intervene or not, especially as it seemed like Natsumi was taking this too far. Oi! Kakashi! Stop spacing out. At this rate Natsumi will lose control of herself and harm Naruto-san. Guy yelled at Kakashi, who looked lost in his own world. Naruto? Are you really back? Kakashi mumbled before he started to feel self-loathing. In his mind he could feel Obito that he knew glaring at him. He left because you and everyone else played favorites. Sensei treated us all equally, and we loved him for it, but he treated his son like he was nothing while praising his daughter like she is a goddess. Obito snapped at him with a look of distaste and annoyance. He could see a young Rin also sighing as she gazed at Naruto with sadness. Perhaps I could have become like him if I didn't have you and everyone else behind me. You don't understand what being a Jinchuriki is like, Kakashi. Did love blind you too? Rin would have asked him to see one of their sensei's student as a ninja of another village. Meanwhile, in the Kage stand, Jiraiya and Tsunade were trying to rouse up Minato, who appeared to be so shell-shocked he couldn't even speak. Minato! You have to stop this now. If this continues, then Naruto will really get hurt down there. Jiraiya snapped as Tsunade shook her head at the fourth Hokage. Natsumi, Naruto, what happened? How did we get to this point? Minato whispered as he could not have imagined this day. He found his son again only to discover he was wrong about his burden, and now even his daughter was losing control of her power and looked ready to hurt her brother. Killer Bee scoffed, getting Tsunade and Jiraiya to glare up at the Eight-Tails Jinchuriki. You guys, Naruto told me how nobody here took him seriously and treated him as an afterthought, and it looks like nothing has changed. Killer Bee noted with disappointment, as his lack of rap showed how serious he was being. What the hell are you talking about? Naruto is going to get seriously hurt if Natsumi-chan uses that Rasengan against him, Jiraiya insisted while the Raikage scoffed. Don't underestimate my pride and joy. You understand nothing, Mr. Sannin. Just wait and see what you missed out on. Raikage stated coldly as he returned to watching Naruto and Natsumi, and ignored the indignant Sannin ninjas. Natsumi had completed her unique tailed beast bomb-looking Rasengan, and started to dash toward Naruto with the ball aimed at his face. Her anger was clear on her face as her second tail was roughly halfway formed. Die! Natsumi screamed, all rational thoughts seemingly gone from her head. Several notable members like Jiraiya, Kakashi, and Kushina looked ready to intervene even if they were too far away. The genin were just caught shocked at these events. Minato's eyes grew focused as he plucked a marked kunai out of his pouch and prepared to throw it. The Raikage and Mizukage had calm expressions as if they were waiting for this to play out. You still have those lumens I got for you, huh? Naruto stated calmly, even as his voice was distorted due to his version 1 cloak. Natsumi stopped less than a foot away from Naruto with her eyes wide and full of shock. What? What did you just say? Natsumi whispered as the chakra orb in her hand spun, but Natsumi pulled her hand away so it was no longer about to press against Naruto's nose, or rather his version 1 cloak. Huh? Everyone else in the stadium asked with varying levels of confusion. What in the heck is a lumen? Kakashi broke the ice by asking the question on everyone's mind. Minato with the kunai in hand turned to the Raikage and his entourage expecting answers. Raikage-san? What is Naruto talking about? Minato asked urgently, but to his surprise the Raikage and Yujito also looked confused. Unseen to the others, Killer Bee had an eye smile underneath his shades. Huh, I see. So he ended up talking about that. Never thought Lil Neru would end up using that memory to his advantage. Of course he doesn't like talking about it, but as his elder Jinchuriki it's my job to know these things. Killer Bee thought seriously before getting a smirk in his mindscape. Gyuki the Eight-Tails gave him a dry look inside their shared mindscape. More like you accidentally accessed that memory during your tailed beast mediation training with him. It's decent of you that you didn't even tell the Raikage about it after you made that promise to Naruto though. Gyuki retorted as Bee just shrugged. Promises are promises. Even my bro cannot make me break a promise between Jinchuriki yo. Killer Bee replied with a mental thumbs up as Gyuki just sighed. The chakra in the tailed beast Rasengan slowly started to vanish as Natsumi anger and hate vanish as she started to gain clarity back. Even her second version 1 tail started to recede back into her cloak. Lumens, the flower that only brother knew about, something I didn't even tell Ka-chan or Tu-chan about, Natsumi thought. And 8. Yeah, lumens. The flowers I picked out for you all these years ago. We just children back then, but I picked those ones out for you from a secret little spot underneath the house. It was pretty dirty work, but the flowers looked so pretty and innocent the first had to give them to you. Do you remember what I told you when I put them in your hair? Naruto told her gently. As if to prove his intentions, the version 1 cloak he was wearing receded back into himself, thus revealing his natural spiky blonde hair, sky blue eyes and 3 whisker marks on his cheeks. He put his hands out to show he meant no harm. Natsumi grasped as she blinked and her own version 1 cloak receded, starting with the tail until she returned to her normal state. You could hear a pin drop as the entire stadium stayed quiet, even the rowdy Konoha civilians, when Minato raised his hand up for silence. Naruto and Natsumi just stared at each other with their father blue eyes looking back at each other. Naruto's eyes showed love and understanding as he put his hands out patiently. Meanwhile, Natsumi's eyes were full of hope, confusion and love as she gazed at him for the first time without anything clouding her mind. I don't want to break the moment, but Naruto really does look exactly like Lord Fourth. Could he really be the missing son of Hokage-sama? Shikamaru thought, watching them carefully. These flowers, they don't have a name, but they are pure and white. They are innocent and pure just like you, sis. Plus, they go Naruto started as he recounted the words he told his twin all those years ago. Really well with your red hair. Hence, I picked them for you so no matter where you go I will always be there with you. Natsumi finished as tears started to form in her corner of her eyes as she gasped in pure happiness. Those words had stayed with her all those long years when her beloved brother had disappeared, and she had always put those same lumens in her hair no matter which outfit she wore or for what occasion. That is really my baby boy. I knew it. I am so sorry I didn't recognize you right away. My children are back together at last. Kushina thought in pure happiness as she put a hand over her mouth as tears threatened to burst out of her eyes. Naruto. He really gave Natsumi hope all these long years. I see that is why she insisted she wear those flowers and nearly killed Jiraiya-sensei when he tried to remove them that one time. Minato thought as pride filled his heart despite his confusion on where Naruto was or how he had the Kyuubi chakra in the first place. There was a few moments as Naruto just stared at Natsumi expectantly with his arms raised. Naruto-ni-chan! Natsumi screamed as she dashed faster than she ever ran before. She appeared little more than a red dash due to her hair. She ran into Naruto's arms and cried out as she rested her face into her twin's muscular and warm chest. Naruto by instinct wrapped his own arms around Natsumi's slim waist and put his hands on the curve of Natsumi's back as he let out a sigh of relief as well. Natsumi wrapped her own arms around his neck while Naruto placed his face into her hair. Still smells as familiar and sweet as before. Naruto thought as Natsumi's unique strawberry scent flooded his nose as he kept his twin wrapped in his arms. This feels so right. Almost like all my troubles vanished. This moment couldn't be more perfect. Natsumi sighed in pure happiness as her arms refused to let go of Naruto's neck as if she was afraid he would vanish as soon as she let go of him again. To the outside world the twins seemed to be two pieces of one puzzle as their bodies seemed to fit perfectly against each other with not even an inch of space from their tight embrace. Both twins mentally blushed when they felt how much each grew in the years they were apart. Naruto could feel her soft chest get squished against his own while Natsumi could feel just how muscular and solid her twin had become. Neither of them decided to pull apart as they decided to just enjoy the moment they had solely missed. Minato and Kushina shared a look of pure happiness with Kushina nearly squealing and gushing at the imagine of their two children together. Naruto and Natsumi blonde and red hair respectively pressed together reminded her of Minato, and herself making her heart throb with joy. Genma just awkwardly stood across from them till he saw his Hokage give him a nod allowing him to use the body flicker to vanish and appear away and give the two genin their moment uninterrupted. After a few moments Natsumi risked looking up so she could look at Naruto in the eyes. Nichan I Natsumi started as she felt like 1,000 apologies was on the very corner of her tongue but she didn't know where to start. Naruto merely smiled at her warmly, as he gently played with her hair with one hand feeling how long and soft her bangs had become in their time apart. I missed you Natsumi. Naruto told her gently making Natsumi gasp as she looked at him with joy and confusion. There wasn't a single moment I didn't think of you. Even during our fight all I could think of was how beautiful you had become in the years apart. You really grew up a lot and became quite the heartbreaker I would assume. Naruto admitted with a heartfelt tone before he gave her a teasing smile making Natsumi blush and look away. Baka ni-chan. Natsumi pouted as she lightly pushed his shoulder making him laugh. Natsumi then smiled as she gently used one hand to stroke his cheek and rub his whisker marks he shared with her. I missed you so much too. There were days I couldn't sleep because I was so worried about where you went. Natsumi admitted as she started to get teary-eyed at the memories of wishing he was here. Naruto's eyes grew sad before he sighed as he shifted his other hand that was on her back to move to her cheek. He gently wiped away her tears and pressed that hand against her cheek making her lean into his hand for the warmth and comfort. I am sorry. I didn't leave you because I wanted to. Naruto assured her as he apologized when he saw how much his twin suffered. Natsumi shook her head and smiled sweetly at him. I know. We are too important to each other to willingly leave the other. You mean everything to me Naruto. Natsumi admitted as she closed her eyes and just rested against him as she bathed in his warmth and took in his scent as well. Naruto closed his own eyes as rested his face against the side of her face as her scent wafted into his nose as well. The twins just allowed this moment to last forever for each other, as it seemed like they were really one person divided into two and both halves were reunited at last. While a majority of the Konochunin and Jonin were confused at why Natsumi and Naruto seemed so close having not gotten close to the latter, Kakashi was near tears as he alone knew the truth. They might not know it but Natsumi-chan grew strong so she could find her twin one day. Now that she has found him it's almost like her life goal has been fulfilled. To her, finding Naruto is more important than becoming Hokage. Kakashi mused as he couldn't help but give an eye smile at the twins reuniting. Tsunade and Jiraiya put their hands on Minato's shoulder, as they gave him looks of pride at seeing his children so fond of each other even after all the time they were apart. I will have to use this chance to actually have a real relationship with Naruto. We owe him a lot after all. Tsunade thought as she tried to ignore the guilt about them not giving Naruto any sort of attention in the years he lived in Konoha. Mei just hummed pleasantly as if she was expecting this result. Yujitoni had her eyes narrowed and crossed her arms as she watched her fellow blonde Jinchuriki reunite with his twin. I don't really see the appeal, but whatever floats his boat, Yujito commented as her eye twitched when he saw the Raikage and Killer Bee grin at her. Seems jealous to me, kitten. Matatabi added from inside her seal helpfully, but her teasing tone showed she was enjoying this more than she would let on. Yujito just closed her eyes and looked away, refusing to acknowledge those statements. Ao narrowed his visible eye when he caught the civilians' faces turning paler than a ghost. The vast majority of them looked like they could not believe Naruto was alive, and not in a good way. Ah, I see. These people do not like Naruto-san being alive. I will have to keep an eye on them, and Mei-sama will intervene when it's needed. Ao thought as he clenched his jaw when he saw the looks of barely repressed hatred aimed at the hero of Mizu. Minato let his children just hold themselves for a few minutes before he sighed. He teleported next to Kushina using Flying Raijin and held his hand up when she looked at her pleadingly. Kushina, as much as I want to let you reunite with Naruto right away, I need to ask him questions. Minato told her with regret in his voice and eyes. Kushina growled as her hair started to take a life of its own and formed tail-like shapes and moved menacingly as she glared at her husband. Do you think I care about your questions, Databane? My baby boy is right there, and we miss so much of his life. I want to hold him in my arms and never let go again, Kushina declared angrily as she felt like a piece of her heart was finally able to be reunited with her, and was just out of reach. Minato shook his head and narrowed his eyes as he bit his lip. Kushina, I am the Hokage. I need to know what Naruto has been through and why he is part of Kumo now. I also need to find out why he has Kyuubi chakra as well despite the efforts of Lord Third. Minato retorted, although he did have a pained tone, making Kushina anger slowly ebb away. Don't push him away. We already made it seem like we favored Natsumi over him far too often. Kushina warned him even as her eyes were full of regret. Minato looked away, trying to hide away his own guilt. Things rarely go according to plans, huh? No matter what our intentions are or how much we want to be able to control and protect everything we love, sometimes things just happen. Minato sighed as an imagine of Rin and Obito, and then Naruto appeared in his mind with their smiling faces turning into sneers in his mind. Minato had thrown a kunai at the edge of the stadium before he teleported to Kushina, so he used that kunai as a beacon and teleported into the stadium instantly. As soon as Minato arrived, Naruto stood away from Natsumi, but Natsumi still held onto his wrist, unwilling to let him go. She didn't notice the sneer and ugly expression on Naruto's face that turned into a neutral expression after a few moments. "Tu-chan! Naruto-ni-chan is back!" Natsumi chanted with pure joy, with her blue eyes sparkling brightly. Her tone was so chipper it would be like if Jiraiya managed to peep on Tsunade without consequences. Levels of happiness. Minato beamed at his children, but his smile lowered when he saw a lack of happiness coming from Naruto, who gripped Natsumi's hand back to her happiness. "Naruto, why are you looking so sad when you look at me? I know we made mistakes, but you must know we love you too, right?" Minato thought as he saw Naruto's eyes full of anger and distrust, although Naruto did a good job hiding it to a minimum. "I know, Natsumi-chan. Welcome back, Naruto-kun. Welcome home," Minato told him warmly as he put his arms out as if expecting a hug. Natsumi reluctantly removed her hand from Naruto so he could hug their father and looked expectantly at Naruto. "Come on, Ni-chan. I know it's been a few years, but Tu-chan has been missing you all this time," Natsumi insisted, feeling confusion when her twin didn't instantly run into their father's arms like she expected. "Are you blind, Hokage-sama?" Naruto asked coldly, to the shock of Natsumi, Minato, Kushina, and the Konoha Jonin and Genin. "Naruto? Why are you calling me that?" Minato stuttered, shocked his own son would refer to him just by his title instead of dad or father. Naruto bit his lip before he pointed to his arm where the Kumo headband was tied and shone brightly. "This is proof of where I belong. It is not in Konoha, and you are just the Lord Hokage to me," Naruto replied coolly as his eyes softened when he glanced over at the stands where the Kumo gang was sitting. Naruto barely resisted smirking when the Mizukage Mei winked at him and even blew him a kiss. Naruto frowned when he saw the disappointed look sent by Tsunade and Jiraiya. Meanwhile, Kushina was so shocked at how different her child seemed compared to her memories she nearly dropped to her knees as if she couldn't believe what was happening. Kakashi blinked away his self-loathing and actually got annoyed as he looked ready to scold Naruto, but held himself back. Those people. They didn't care about me when I actually lived him, and now, they actually have the gall to be disappointed in me. If anything, I am disappointed in them. Naruto mentally raged out as he clenched his fist and grit his teeth. While Minato and Natsumi were shocked at Naruto's outburst, Genma was staring intently at Naruto. He noticed his clenched teeth and his fist clenching in anger. This kid, the Kyuubi child, if I see him as the Kyuubi, then I can understand why he wouldn't exactly be fond of this village, and I don't even know the first thing about him. Genma mused but kept his thoughts to himself. Natsumi meanwhile resisted slapping herself just to see if she was caught up in a genjutsu. Brother! How can you speak that way to Tu-chan? He is our father! Natsumi screamed as she grabbed his shoulder to turn him around, so he was forced to look at her in the eyes. Natsumi's confused eyes met Naruto's cold eyes, but his eyes did soften when he looked at her instead of Minato. Natsumi, I do love you and nothing can change that. Naruto assured her with sincerity in his voice, but his eyes turned flat when he glanced at the still shocked Minato. However, that man over there, he is your father for everything, but for me our experiences with him are completely different. In another way, he gave you light while he left me in the dark. This is what happened to me. Naruto explained darkly as his bright blue eyes appeared to darken as he gently but forcibly pushed Natsumi's hand from his shoulder. Naruto, what happened to you? What made you go to Kumo? Minato asked in disbelief as he tried to step towards Naruto, but to his sadness Naruto took a step back. Naruto bit his lip and then clicked his teeth. He took a deep sigh before his dark expression turned to anger and resentment. You really want to know? The reason I am in Kumo is because you failed to protect me from this place. Naruto declared resentfully, much to Minato, Natsumi, the Sannin, his mother, Kakashi, the Jonin and the Genin's surprise at his declaration. Kakashi, however, looked away to see the majority of the Konoha crowd glaring at Naruto as if he was dirt they wanted to get rid of. How dare that brat speak that way to Hokage-sama? Why is Hokage-sama not putting that beast down? He should be locked up so he can't taint Natsumi-chan with his evil. Were some of the not-so-subtle and quiet whispers from behind Kakashi, as they seemed to believe they were subtle enough to reveal their true feelings at the blonde Jinchuriki. These people. Minato-sensei thought it was just an extremist minority of people who actually believed Naruto was tainted by the soul of Kyuubi. Were we blind to the fact there was and still is a lot of people who believe Naruto is evil itself? Kakashi thought, furious as he felt the urge to use his lightning blade as a warning to these people. Minato got over his shock as the side of him that became the fierce Hokage and the same man who slaughtered 1,000 IWA ninjas to force an end to the Third Ninja War. Naruto, despite my faults and mistakes, I am still Hokage first. I need you to tell me why you have the Kyuubi power, and why you are working in Kumo. Minato demanded sharply as Naruto's eyes narrowed as he glared back at him. Tu-chan, you cannot actually believe that Ni-chan is some sort of enemy, can you? Natsumi asked in disbelief, but she flinched when Minato's focused eyes gave her a quick but sharp look. Natsumi. He might be my son and your brother, but I cannot ignore the fact he is wearing a Kumo headband and has powers he should not. Minato reproached her before his sharp eyes returned to Naruto, who scoffed. The Raikage got up from his seat, making Tsunade and Jiraiya look startled as it looked like the Raikage was about to start something. However, Yujito and Killer Bee shook their heads as they gestured to Naruto. Bro, let Naruto deal with this. Killer Bee told him seriously, with Yujito nodding along. He needs to say what's in his heart himself. If things get serious, then we will intervene. Yujito suggested as A frowned but nodded. Fine. However, if they think I will let them hurt him again, then they have another thing coming. I declared as he reluctantly got back into his seat. Again? What kind of hurt has Naruto suffered? Tsunade thought in worry along with guilt. Again, with that tone. It's pretty much the same as before. Later, Naruto. We are too busy, Naruto. Naruto, you should be less needy. Why are you bothering us now? Those sound familiar? It's all I heard when I needed you or anyone and was brushed aside over and over again. Naruto snapped as his anger and hurt vibrated in his tone. Kushina and Minato looked away in shame as they remembered how much they pushed Naruto away when he was a child to focus on Natsumi, even if it was not intended to hurt him. Jiraiya, Kakashi and Swanda wanted to tell Naruto off but couldn't find anything he had said was a lie. The genin were a bit surprised that the son of the Hokage was seemingly ignored for his sister, but they did admit they barely heard of him and almost forgot there was another child of the Hokage over the years. Those eyes, he is full of hatred like Megara of the Sand, thought as he looked at Naruto with interest. Natsume's head fell down as she felt guilt knowing she was at least partly responsible for that. I was always so needy before. I never realized I was taking all the attention from brother. How many times did he need something and everyone was focused on my wants? Natsume thought as she felt her heart breaking when she started to see things from his lens. Naruto once again shook his head when he saw his twin look down. I didn't blame you before and I still don't. It's not your fault the adults were too blind to see me and only focus on you. Naruto told her gently as he patted her on the shoulder. Natsume looked up at him with unsure eyes as if she was a kitten who didn't know if she was doing right or wrong. Naruto then turned to Minato with a sneer as he crossed his arms. Fine, Tsusama. Do you really want to know what happened to me to make me like this? You might like the answer. Naruto told him as he sighed. It all started that day when I was kidnapped from the village and saved by a certain man. Naruto started with a sad look. Who are you? Natsume asked as she grit her teeth hearing her beloved twin was kidnapped from the village years ago. Naruto had an ironic smile as he crossed his arms and waved his hand. The ghost of the Senju clan. Tobirama Senju, the second Hokage and younger brother of Hashirama Senju. Naruto revealed, grinning when everyone in Konoha's jaws dropped. Nani? Everyone shouted. Liar! How dare you discredit Lord Second, you brat! You are just trying to make Lord Fourth look bad. Countless civilians yelled from Konoha in denial of Naruto claims while the smaller group from Kumo and Kiri gave them looks of disgust. Minato growled before raising his chakra and hand up, making them sweat in fear as small cracks appeared around him. Enough. Please be quiet. Minato asked, but his tone showed this was not a request. The civilians instantly shut up while Kushina had a smile despite longing to hug her missing son and never let him go. I love it when Minato-kun actually speaks his mind and shows a spine. It was like when he finally decided to put that old geezer Danzo down after the whole Uchiha massacre incident. Kushina thought in pride. She had remembered Jiraiya in private told her that he doubted that the third Hokage Hiruzen would have had the guts and spine to put down Danzo. He was not able to bring himself to punish his favorite student, and Jiraiya doubted he could have put down his former teammate. Minato turned to Naruto, who was still looking rather steely-eyed at him, making Minato frown, and his heart ached seeing his son for the first time in over a decade and him showing nothing but disappointment and annoyance at him. Naruto, what happened to you? What happened while I wasn't watching and protecting you like I should have? Minato thought sadly before steeling his heart, as he knew was his job as Hokage. Naruto-kun, as much as I would love to take your word as Hokage, even I find it hard to believe the long-dead Lord Second, my predecessor, could have saved you. Minato stated as he gazed at Naruto with a serious expression. Despite the less than warm atmosphere, the Konoha genin could not help but gossip as they watched the back and forth between Lord Fourth and his missing son. Ino turned to Sakura with a slight blush when she saw how handsome Naruto was and how much he resembled his father. It was no secret that Minato was considered one of the village's most desired bachelors before he and Kushina officially became a couple and married. Even after he became a father, he was considered this generation's childhood crush for girls. It's really sad how much Naruto-san seems to hate his father, but it's so surreal how much he resembles Lord Fourth. If it wasn't the slight facial shape and his whisker markings, I would think it was Lord Fourth clone rather than son. Ino whispered to Sakura, who tilted her head unimpressed. If that's your thing. I mean, I guess I could see the appeal, but he still isn't on the same level as Sasuke-kun. Sakura declared with pride. I can hear you. You know that, right? I am right behind you and you are not exactly quiet. Sasuke stated flatly with a slight sigh. It was well known that if not for his brother and mother, Sasuke would have become much more withdrawn and antisocial after the massacre of his clan. The only person he wanted to kill was Danzo himself, who was revealed to have made an unsanctioned attack on the Uchiha clan during night, with only Mikoto, Itachi and Sasuke being spared due to the response of the Anbu and the fourth Hokage himself. Luckily, Lord Fourth found the man responsible and killed him. The clan has been avenged. Sasuke thought with a hint of thankfulness. Uncaring of what other people were saying about him, Naruto stared at Minato with cool look before sighing. I suppose nothing I say will have much value, huh? I am in Kumo now after all, and Kumo is not an ally of Konoha. Naruto mused with the Raikage nodding and Mei secretly smirking at the word ally. Not an ally of Kumo, but doesn't mean Kumo doesn't have allies. Mei though smugly. Minato wanted to scream that it didn't matter to him where Naruto was now, but he held his tongue. As much as it hurt him, he was still the Hokage first, and he couldn't let his personal feelings get in the way of his duty as leader. Naruto turned to the crowd as he scanned past the scornful looks of the Konoha civilians before he found a face he recognized. Asama. I need C-senpai's help. Can I request his jutsu? Naruto shouted as he turned to the Raikage, who blinked as he made a thinking gesture with his hand on his chin. Ah, so that is what you are planning. Very well, Naruto. See, go down there and help Naruto with what he needs. A commanded as a blonde-haired man with a Kumo headband nodded and saluted. Hi, Raikage-sama. C stated respectively as he did a front flip so he was standing next to Naruto. Genma looked ready to intervene but stopped when Minato raised a hand up. What are you doing, Naruto-kun? You can just come home and we can talk through everything. Minato pleaded with his eyes desperate. However, Naruto grit his teeth as his eyes narrowed and his fist clenched. Talk things through? Oh, now you want to know what I want to say? How about all those times before when I wanted any sort of acknowledgement, or love or anything from you? All I ever got from you was the impression that I was some sort of unwanted spare or that I was in Natsume's way. Naruto raged as his eyes briefly turned red and slitted as Kyuubi chakra flowed into him by instinct, his voice changing into the deeper tone due to the influx of Kyuubi chakra. Natsume flinched when she saw her beloved twin start to use the same power that always bothered her despite her parents' and teachers' insistence she could control it. Is this how I look when I use the Kyuubi power? But if Nichan also had that same power inside of him, why did everyone tell me I was special if we both could do it? Natsume thought with her heart aching. As a young woman, she could now start to realize that her and Naruto were treated much differently despite being twins and Naruto being a few minutes older than her. The Konoha civilians started to sweat but resisted running off due to not wanting to look weak in front of the Kiri and Kumo guests. Plus, they were kinda deluded in the sense they thought with Lord 4th Hokage that they were invincible and untouchable. That brat really is a monster talking to Lord 4th that way, a man stated smugly. Yeah. Plus he is using the Kyuubi power he must have stolen somehow, unlike Natsume Haim who earned it, a woman whispered snidely. Kakashi's single visible eye narrowed as he had turned off his Sharingan by putting his headband over it once his sensei had appeared to talk to Naruto. These people. I will admit I was not exactly the best role model for Naruto, especially when he grew up, but how can these people think somehow Natsume's use of Kyuubi chakra is some sort of heroic act but Naruto using that some power is tainted? Kakashi thought with barely controlled rage. However, it still begs how exactly Naruto is using Kyuubi power if it was sealed inside Natsume. Kakashi thought as he had to take mental breaths from knocking out if killing the civilians he had sworn to defend. Nichan. Please calm down. Natsume begged as she hesitated to grab his arm before she grabbed it in a pleading manner. Naruto barely seemed to register his twin as he glared at the sorrowful Minato who could barely look his son in the eye. Naruto, Minato mumbled a loss for words as he didn't know how to respond to the accusation. However, one person from Kumo seemed to lack any hesitation. Yujito gave a look to Raikage and Killer Bee when they looked ready to jump down. She shook her head and tilted her head towards Naruto. They looked at her for a moment before nodding, making her give a nod of appreciation. She appeared in the stadium using a fire body flicker, but interestingly enough her version had blue fire due to Matatabi, the two-tailed cat sealed inside of her. Minato raised a hand up when Genma looked ready to intervene. Yujito-san, was it? What do you need? I don't mean to sound rude, but my son is being a bit rash right now. Minato asked carefully and politely, but with a hint of impatience, as he was on the fence on whether his son needed to be sealed away. Or rather his tailed beast chakra. Yujito gave a quick but polite bow of respect to the 4th Hokage but looked past him towards Naruto. She saw Yujito and wisely chose to step back, knowing whatever Yujito had to say to Naruto was private. Yujito-chan, Naruto mumbled with his eyes still in the red slitted Kyuubi state but softer than when he looked at Minato. Naruto, please calm down. Yujito said with softness that surprised the people from Konoha as she kept a polite but cool expression on her beautiful face, but when she looked at Naruto it was full of tenderness and warmth. Naruto didn't seem to know what to say as he looked away from Yujito's expression as a look of shame appeared on his face. The Kyuubi marking faded away, returning his blue eyes, and his whisker markings returned to the normal length. The Kyuubi chakra receded back inside Naruto now that his negative feelings had faded away. Before Naruto could find a reply, he looked back with a surprised look when he felt Yujito crash into him with a warm embrace as she pressed their cheeks together and wrapped her arms around his neck in a tender and loving embrace. By instinct and perhaps desire, Naruto wrapped his own arms around Yujito's slim waist, resting his hands on her wide hips as they sighed in contentment. The dual blonde Jinchuriki to pay no attention to the rest of the world as they embraced in happiness, with their bodies appearing to be tangled like two pieces of a puzzle. Nobody in Kumo looked the least bit surprised, and the people from Kiri just raised a slight eyebrow. The Mizukage maid did place a hand over her full lips to hide her giggles and smirk of amusement, as if the scene was rather funny to her. The Jonin of Konoha just looked at each other in confusion at how the son of the current Hokage seemed to hold quite a bit of resentment towards them, but was at ease with the Jonin and Jinchuriki from Kumo. Minato and Natsumi exchanged looks of confusion, but Minato did smile a bit when he saw his son let down his guard even if it wasn't around him. Kushina Uzumaki, however, was a much different story in the stands. The people around her inched away from the beautiful red-haired mother, as she seemed to be leaking killer intent without realizing it, shown by how her long red hair seemed to be moving on its own in several tail-like shapes similar to the Kyuubi tails of the Kyuubi that once resided inside of her. "What is that little hussy doing with my baby boy?" Kushina hissed as her violet eyes seemed to darken to the point they were almost black of anger. I can understand little Natsumi comforting him as she is his sister, but this little hussy thinks she can parade around with a body like that and seduce my child? Kushina thought with pure anger, as in her mind the beautiful younger woman was trying to use her good looks to take her boy away from her. Secretly, Kushina was also a bit insecure, as the two-tailed Jinchuriki had a natural beauty in her mid-20s that seemed to match some of the most beautiful women in the Leaf Village, including Tsunade Senju herself. In her mind, the fact her son seemed to be comfortable with her on a level similar to her own daughter meant that Yujito had some sort of scheme to steal her son's heart and body away from the village, or more specifically her. It also didn't help Yujito was only a few years older than her son and a prime age where men would desire of her of all ages / Just give me a reason. Any reason, and I don't care if the Raikage himself tries to stop me. I will pummel, Kushina declared as she was nearly frothing at the mouth in anger. Minato seemed to sense something with his wife as he turned around and shook his head and gave her a stern look. Kushina growled as she crossed her arms and reluctantly nodded, knowing as the Hokage wife there was certain things she could not just do, especially when it came to her husband's political career. For example, attacking a guest of a rival village like Kumo in broad daylight, especially a Jinchuriki, without some sort of justification. Meanwhile, Tsunade smacked Jiraiya in the head when he pouting. Sheesh, that little kid gets all the luck, huh? I mean, I am sure there are countless men and women out there who would guy anything to be able to hold a babe like Yujito-san in such an intimate way. Jiraiya whined in a somewhat joking manner, much to the Raikage, Killer Bee, and even Tsunade ire. That man may be powerful, but he is truly a pervert. The rumors of him peeping on Kunoichi and Hot Springs seemed to be well founded. I noted with disappointment at the man's eccentric behavior. You peep on Yujito, and I will kill you where you stand. Be warned coldly as placed a hand on of the two swords hanging from his back. B. That is enough. I shouted, despite his usual and well-known was still a kaiga for a good reason. B's expression turned comical as he took his hand off his sword and placed both of them in front of him in surrender. Yo bro. I was only kidding, yo. I thought coming to Konoha would make you more chill, but all it did was make you want to flex your skill. Killer B rapped, getting sweat drops from everyone in the kaiga's booth, although May did give an amused giggle and I smile. He sure is carefree. Much better than my predecessor, May mused cheerfully. Is this guy really the perfect Jinchuriki of Kumo and the other half of the legendary AB combo? Tsunade thought skeptically as she crossed her arms under chest. Okay, yeah, sure. I won't peep on Miss Yujito or May-sama, but come on. You honestly believe you could kill me just like that? Jiraiya promised with his hands out in front of him, but his smirk showed how much he thought his skills were above Killer B's. Yujito pressed her forehead against Naruto's, which her Kumo headband gently clanking against his forehead, as they closed their eyes and just enjoyed the contact. Naruto and Yujito blinked, revealing their consciousness was now in the tailed beast telepathy plane, where Yon Kurama and Matatabi lazily sat on their front paws but still towered over the Jinchuriki, who waved to each other. Hey Matatabi. It's been a while. Naruto chirped at the blue two-tailed cat-tailed beast. Indeed, Naruto-kun. Matatabi purred as her two tails waved around lazily. Hello Kurama. I hope you are feeling well with your other half so close. Yujito asked respectfully and with a hint of concern. Naruto and Yon Kurama exchanged a look before Kurama waved his giant fist and let out a giant yawn. It just feels like an inch that needs to be scratched, to be honest. We cannot communicate with my other half as easily as you or Eight Tails due to him refusing to work with this brat's twin. He does seem angry though. I can tell he possibly hates that brat more than I hated Naruto before. Yon Kurama mused with an intrigued look. Not brat. Natsumi. Naruto stated automatically as Kurama rolled his eyes as his massive tails moved for a bit before dropping to the floor as Kurama closed his eyes seemingly to take a nap. Haha Kurama. I still find it hard to believe you of all tailed beasts are working so well with your Jinchuriki. Matatabi giggled, looking amused when Kurama gave her the finger while still keeping his eyes closed. Yujito turned to Naruto, who was smiling at the tailed beasts. Look, I know you want to reunite with your sister, and I can understand that. But you need to stop fussing about the Hokage. I know what his inactions did you while you were here, but your home isn't this place. It's in Kumo, and this is just a place of the past. Yujito told him sternly, but her eyes softened when Naruto looked down in shame. I know. You are right, it's just this place brings back all those feelings I had when I lived here, and it frustrates me to no end when he starts acting like he cares now. Naruto admitted with a sigh as he clenched his fist. Yujito sighed before smiling sweetly at Naruto. Before Naruto could respond, Yujito walked over with a notable sway of her well-developed hips and pressed against him, wrapped her arms around his neck. She sighed, making Naruto shudder as her warm breath and sweet scent bathed his own senses. Yujito pressed a sweet kiss on his cheek and let her soft lips linger for a few seconds before she pulled away with a notable pop from her lips, pulling away from his cheek. Yujito giggled and winked when she saw Naruto's face turn red, with her unique red lipstick lingered on his cheek, showing where she smooched him. Just remember, my bed is always an option when you feel lonely. Yujito chirped with a twinkle in her eyes and a purr in her tone as she gazed with half-closed eyes that would driven any male wild with desire. Naruto looked away, refusing to answer exactly what their relationship was, even as Kurama and Matatabi laughed at his expressions. Just bang already. It's what humans do when they need to relieve stress, right? You will both feel better and be annoying happy than annoying depressed. Kurama suggested with a yawn, ignoring the flustered looks Naruto and Yujito sent him. Kurama, Naruto-kun and Yujito-chan are human. When they make love, it will be special and not just rutting like animals like you suggest. Matatabi chided as Yujito's cheeks turned darker red. Not exactly helping Matatabi. Yujito yelped as Matatabi waved her tails in amusement before she blinked as if thinking of something else. We better get back before Bee and Gyuki invade our little private chat. I could do without Bee raps if I am being honest. Matatabi noted as the four of them shudder at the thought of Killer Bee rapping away in their private mindscape. Yujito and Naruto waved bye to each other as they closed eyes in the mindscape and opened them to reveal only a small amount of time had passed in the real world as Yujito gently removed herself from their close embrace. Killer Bee was giving them the stink eye from behind his shades, almost as if he could tell they had a meeting without him. If your raps were any good, maybe they would invite us to the meetings more often? Gyuki suggested from Killer Bee's own seal. Killer Bee refused to grace that question with an answer, as he mentally pouted. Or perhaps they need each other more they are willing to admit? They care about you too, Bee, but you of all people should know even Jinchuriki have different needs for different people. Gyuki the Eight Tails noted as Killer Bee's pout turned soft as he smiled softly. Naruto gave Yujito a graceful look before he gestured to see who nodded. She walked over to him till he was standing next to him in arm's length. Prepare to transmit my memories using that jutsu, Naruto told See, who nodded. She then turned to Minato, who gave him a suspicious look. This is not the mind transmission jutsu of the Yamanaka clan, but rather a jutsu we reverse-engineered and modified to fit Kumo's needs. It's not like the mind transmission jutsu is even a bloodline jutsu like the Sharingan or Byakugan. It's just a hidden jutsu that is only taught to members of Yamanaka clan, but it can be modified if the user is skilled enough. She explained patiently as he knew that people of Konoha was going to raise a fuss. Minato sighed as he put a palm on his forehead to soothe his aching head before he raised a hand up. C-san is correct. Despite how it seems, using a jutsu from another village is not stealing village secrets. If it was, then members of the Uchiha clan with their Sharingan would have issues with copying jutsus, Minato declared as he gestured to Kakashi, who rubbed his head in embarrassment. Sensei is right, as I am pretty famous for being copycat Kakashi for using a Beto Sharingan to copy tons of other village jutsu, Kakashi admitted as he saw Sasuke frown with his arms crossed. Members of the Yamanaka clan frowned but realized they had no real grounds for leveling a complaint against Kumo. The genin Ino Yamanaka looked surprised as she turned to Shikamaru. Hokage-sama is right. It's like the shadow possession jutsu. Despite only people from my clan getting it taught doesn't mean it is actually tied to our blood. Anyone could theoretically use the jutsu as they know the signs or make a variation, but I am guessing you need to be a skilled sensory type ninja. That sea guy probably is a sensory type, and that is how he made a version of your clan's jutsu, Shikamaru guessed as Ino nodded slowly. The real issue, however, is just what kind of memories we shall see from that Naruto guy. If the village really did drive this guy away from here, the real question is how. The Hokage-san, the one our age group can barely remember what exactly is about him that made him not beloved like Natsumi over there, if they are both children of the current Hokage and Lady Uzumaki? Shikamaru thought in worry, not really wanting to know the answer. This will allow you all to see my memories and see the truth of what I went through. We can start over 12 years ago on my 4th birthday. The very last day I spent in this place. Naruto noted as he smiled darkly when he saw Minato wince. Naruto placed a hand on C's shoulder, who began to form hand signs before they stopped when they heard a feminine voice shout. Wait! Please, a moment! A woman voice shouted from the stands. Everyone turned around with Naruto looking surprised at who was talking. This is... Naruto thought as recognized the voice as memories of that same voice from his childhood appeared in his mind. A beautiful woman with fair skin, black hair and dark eyes appeared in a body flicker, making puff of smoke appear, making Naruto notably flinch and his eyes widened. She was Mikoto Uchiha, the clan head of the near-extinct Uchiha clan and the widow of the late Fugaku Uchiha and mother of Sasuke and Itachi Uchiha. Despite being in her mid-30s, she retained her youthful and beautiful looks. She physically looked closer to her mid-20s, which was attributed to her strong Uchiha genes, which made her rather famous due to her good looks and status as a clan head. Despite all this, or perhaps due to this, Mikoto Uchiha had never remarried or had any sort of relationships after the death of her husband, no matter how many offers were sent her way. She was wearing a standard Jonin Kouna green outfit that clung to her curves and well-developed. Naruto-kun, it's been quite a while, Mikoto stated to Naruto with a soft and warm look that made Naruto look down as if he couldn't stand to see her. Andi Mikoto, sorry I didn't tell you anything, Naruto replied with guilt in his eyes and tone as he expected anger or disappointment sent towards him. If there is anyone I should apologize to, it's her, Naruto thought sadly, as Mikoto and Itachi were one of the few, if only, people who didn't treat him as an annoyance or plague while he lived in Konoha. Much to Naruto's surprise, he felt a warm body press against him as he looked up, only to see Mikoto slam into him and wrap her arms around his neck and press her head into his neck. Naruto blinked in confusion for several moments before shakily wrapped his arms around her back. You don't need to apologize. I understand why you didn't come back and I forgive you. All I feel is gratefulness that you are happy now and alive. Mikoto told him warmly as he held him in an embrace like he was her child. Thank you, Naruto answered softly as he let his eyes rest as he enjoyed the warmth of something like a mother that no matter how much he denied it he missed and craved even as a young adult. Yujito pouted as she crossed her arm at the good-looking older woman but hid a small smile when she saw that Naruto looked more a child his age at the affection given to him. So this is the one woman in Konoha who treated Naruto like a person and not an unwanted spare of the yellow flash. Despite the fact she is what most young men would describe as a mother I would like to be with, to put it polite terms, I can tell Naruto's feelings for her is basically a motherly figure he sincerely needed. I can assume by that hug she feels Naruto is like one of her children she has found again. Yujito mused as she watched carefully for the sake of her fellow blonde Jinchuriki. Minato raised an arm up when Natsumi wanted to interrupt, making her pout but nod, seeing her twin have a content expression on his serious face. Meanwhile Kushina was both glad and livid as she grit her teeth in anger at the display. Why? I am his actual mother, and my Naruto-kun seems far more relieved to see Mikoto-chan than me. He hasn't even asked about me once, and he is basically throwing himself into Mikoto-chan's arms like a lost child. She already has 2 sons to smother, and I only have 1. She shouldn't try to steal my only one for herself. Kushina thought in anger before a nasty voice spoke in her eye. But wasn't it you who pushed Naruto away? He only reaching out for Mikoto because you failed to provide the motherly love he needed in the first place? A devil like Kushina whispered in her eye. This devil version had her same red hair, but instead of beautiful violet eyes like her, this Kushina had yellow eyes and a devious smirk on her face. It wasn't supposed to be this way, I never meant, I only, Kushina thought back, trying to rationalize or justify her actions before a flood of memories of her telling off her only son or being frustrated when Naruto asked why things were different between him and Natsumi. Eventually he just stopped asking and she kept him in arm's length while smothering Natsumi. It doesn't matter what you wanted to happen. Your son is the one who paid the price regardless of what you intended. If he doesn't think of you as his mother, then the only one who is to blame is you. Not Mikoto, not Minato, not Jiraiya or anyone else. It's on you. You were supposed to be his mother, and you failed. Her devil-like self stated coldly before vanishing. Kushina thought in despair as she could not refuse her devil-like self-accusations and was barely able to hold back tears at the thought of pushing her son away. While the vast majority of Konoha was more confused than anything else at the female Uchiha clan head actions, there was one genin who had narrowed his eyes in jealousy and suspicion. Who is this guy? Why is mother hugging him like that? Sasuke thought with narrowed eyes before blinked when he felt his vision distort. Time appeared to stop for him as he blinked and saw Itachi appear in front of him with a neutral expression. Is this genjutsu? Itachi Nissan, Sasuke asked, realizing that Itachi must have looked him in the eyes with his 3-tomo Sharingan without him noticing and placing him in an illusion to talk privately. Sasuke-kun, calm down, Itachi told him with his Sharingan glaring down at his younger brother who scowled up at him with his arms crossed. Nissan, how can you be so calm like that? Ka-sen is hugging some guy like she is one of us. I don't care if he the Hokage's son or not. He doesn't need to steal mother away from us, as we only have mother. He has both his parents right there and choosing to ignore them to steal our only parent left. Sasuke ranted with jealousy in his voice and his hands in front of him to illustrate his point. Sasuke-kun, Itachi told him quietly but with an aura of power that made Sasuke stop his rant to look up at his older brother with fear. Itachi's Sharingan had transformed from 3-tomo eyes to something resembling a 3-sided pinwheel as he glared at Sasuke with disappointment. This is Nissan Manjikyu Sharingan. He is being serious here. Sasuke thought with a shudder, as he had been told that it was a higher-level evolution to the Sharingan that only a few members of their clan had awakened. Sasuke-kun, Naruto-kun probably has real reasons to need our mother for comfort. Just because Hokage-sama and Kushina-sama are down there does not mean they are ones Naruto-kun needs to fill in that role of parent for him. Itachi lectured as his Manjikyu Sharingan seemed to spin in each of his eyes to show his intent. But Nissan, why does Naruto need our mother? What happened to him and his parents? Sasuke asked with a more curious tone than angry, unlike before. Itachi frowned as he crossed his arms for a minute before he looked back at Sasuke. Naruto-kun did not have the go-happy childhood you would expect from a child of the current Hokage and one of the last Uzumaki members to be alive. He did not experience life like Natsumi-chan despite what your generation might think. Itachi told him, carefully raising a hand up when Sasuke looked ready to argue. You were too young to understand while Naruto-kun was here, but I saw signs of darkness surrounding him, and the adults gave him not love like they did his sister but rather hatred itself. I will not claim to know everything that happened, but from my observations he and you might get along better than you think. Itachi mused as his Manjikyu Sharingan returned to be their Sharingan form. Humph. I guess I can wait and see before I confront him. Sasuke agreed reluctantly as Itachi gave him a small smile. Itachi flicked him on the forehead, making Sasuke yelp in surprise. Glad to see you can see a bit further than what is best for you, my dear little brother. Till next time. Itachi told him with hint of pride as Sasuke's eyes widened. Sasuke was now back in reality, where it appeared only a few seconds at most had passed from his conversation with Itachi. Sasuke looked over to where Itachi was, who was wearing his Crow-Ombu mask, but nodded to him. Sasuke briefly looked over at the Kage box where Tsunade and Jiraiya were looking warily but also guilt-ridden down at Naruto. If Lady Tsunade wasn't here, then Big Brother, Sasuke thought to himself with sadness. It had been discovered after the Uchiha massacre that Itachi Uchiha had a near-crippling and deadly disease that would slowly but surely kill him over time. Luckily, Lady Tsunade had managed to diagnose and cure that disease. Your brother is rather lucky I caught it early. If it had been a few more years it would have been deadly, and at most all I would be able to do is extend his life a few years longer. To think your brother had something like this inside of him. Rather curious, Tsunade had told him, much to Sasuke and Mikoto happiness at Itachi's recovery. Itachi was currently the strongest member of Minato-sama's Umbu and one of the strongest members of the village, and rumored to be just under the strength of the Hokage and the legendary Sannin themselves. And 2. If we didn't discover that disease, would Big Brother told us? Or would he just smile and pretend everything was okay while he slowly got weaker and died? Sasuke thought sadly before shaking his head at the hypothetical. Naruto then stepped back as he gave Mikoto a look of sadness and empathy. I am sorry about the Uchiha clan. I will say I do have some respect for Lord Hokage for putting down Danzo-san for his and Root's actions towards the Uchiha. Naruto told her solemnly as he gave a brief and quick nod to a surprised Minato. Thank you? Minato replied awkwardly as he was unsure what to say to something like that, especially his son who was just a minute ago looked ready to shout in his face. Natsumi blinked before a bright grin appeared on her face. Maybe Big Brother will be able to forgive Kusama, and we can become a family again. Natsumi thought cluelessly as she still did not know the full details on why Naruto hated Minato so much. I am sorry I wasn't here for you. It must have been hard to have everyone you know killed in a single night. Naruto apologized, looking away in shame before he felt a warm hand on his forehead urging him to look at Mikoto in the face. Mikoto's face showed nothing but compassion and understanding as she gave him a sweet motherly smile on the forehead, making Naruto briefly just sigh in contentment. I don't blame you. There is nothing you could have done to change the outcome, and the Uchiha clan burdens were not yours to bear, Naruto-kun. Thank you though for the understanding. It does mean a lot to me. Mikoto told him warmly as she wrapped him in another tight hug which he happily returned. Minato coughed, getting the attention of Mikoto and Naruto, who broke apart but stayed within arm distance. As much as I don't want to interrupt, but why are you here, Mikoto-san? Naruto-kun was going to show his memories to us, but then you interrupted? Is there something you need to say? Minato asked politely with a kind smile. Much to Natsumi and Naruto's surprise, Mikoto gave Minato a sneer before her expression turned perfectly neutral like stone on her beautiful face. Forgive me, Hokage-sama. I want to show my memories of that day. Naruto-kun might know what happened from his perspective, but I think he deserves to know what happened from us adults that day. Mikoto explained stoically as her expression showed a distinct lack of warmth she just showed Naruto. Minato winced at the tone but did not look surprised, making Naruto suspicious. Meanwhile, Kushina glares sent towards Mikoto for acting like a mother towards Naruto turned to one of sadness and regret when she saw Mikoto turn rather formal when it came to her husband. Despite not turning her way, she could almost feel the same disappointment aimed at her. How odd. I know I have been gone for quite a few years, but I know Mikoto Oba-chan was best friends with her Ka Uzumaki-sama and had great respect for Hokage-sama, but her tone just now showed great disgust, almost as if she doesn't consider them her friends anymore. Naruto thought, unknowingly showing his mixed feelings towards Kushina Uzumaki, his mother. Uchiha-sama, why are you entertaining that boy? He is a liar and wants to slander our and Lord Hokage good name. A male civilian yelled in outrage. Yujito and B narrowed their eyes as they had endured similar insults previously in Kumo, so they could tell he meant to say demon, not boy. This seemed to cause the ripple effect as dozens of Konoha civilians started to say some not-so-nice slurs at Naruto, but notably only in such a way he was a traitor and ungrateful rather than a demon. The Reikage looked unimpressed along with Mizukage sighing in disappointment. It seems Lord Hokage has some rowdy people in his village, right, Lord Reikage? Mei asked, letting out a breath as she frowned at how easy it was for the people in Konoha to turn into a crowd. Tsunade and Jiraiya frowned at the tone as they could easily hear the hidden message. The two other Kage were not saying rowdy but more like traitorous, implying Minato could not handle his own village people in a public event. Perhaps we should give them the benefit of the doubt, Mizukage-sama. Perhaps it's just my ninja Naruto that has them this rowdy and not just a common thing? Now I wonder why someone like Naruto would get such a reaction inside this village? I suggested slyly with his smirk suggesting he already knew the answer. Neither Jiraiya nor Tsunade rose to the bait, choosing to stay silent. Meanwhile, Kushina was gritting her teeth at the audacity of these villagers that loved her, her husband and her daughter, and yet seemed to use any opportunity to slander her baby boy. I don't care if he is currently in another village, he is still my child, and these people are acting like he the true threat. Kushina thought in anger as her violet eyes almost seemed to turn red, suggesting trace amounts of Kyuubi chakra resided inside of her despite it being split between Natsumi and Naruto. Naruto considered giving them the finger but realized it would reflect poorly on his real home and Kage and not on the Leaf Village. Let these people sprout nonsense. If they think they can break my spirit now, then they are sorely mistaken. Naruto thought as he had his muscles ready in case he needed to make hand signs if the crowd got violent and started throwing things. Minato looked around ready to force them to submit using his chakra again, but someone beat him to the punch. Enough. Quiet, or I shall make you see things that would make nightmares seem like happy dreams. Mikoto warned with her voice deeper with use of chakra. She turned kindly to Natsumi and Naruto with a kind smile. Please, Naruto-kun, Natsumi-chan, and even you, Yujito-san, please look down. I don't want you to see me like this. I have a certain imagine of me I want you to preserve in your minds, and this is not what I want in there. Mikoto asked sweetly. Natsumi looked terrified while even Naruto started to sweat from the tone. Kushina glared at her best friend lecturing and educating her children like they were hers. Hi! Natsumi squeaked as she looked down while Yujito raised an eyebrow. Strong, attractive woman. I can see why Naruto-kun looked up to her. Yujito thought, indicating Naruto had spoken of Mikoto in the past. Yujito decided to humor the Uchiha as she looked away and hummed. Meanwhile, Naruto felt an instinctive urge to comply. It's been years, but she still has that kick-ass mom vibe. Naruto mused as he bowed and looked away. Once Mikoto was sure that the young ones would not be caught in her glare, she turned back to the audience with her face colder than ice. Her eyes were closed, but her beautiful face was set in a frown. You might have gotten away with it with words like that under the Hokage-sama, but never say anything like that in my presence. Mikoto warned as she let off bursts of chakra, causing the ground beneath her to start to crack. One lucky or possibly stupid male civilian licked his lips when he saw the attractive Uchiha, and did not seem to have survival instincts, or rather his lust and desire overtook that instinct. Uchiha-sama. You should stop wasting your time with some Kumo scum like him. If you need something to focus on, my place is always open. The man claimed as he stared at Mikoto's well-developed curves with lust. This got looks of disgust from the majority of the ninjas there, with Sasuke and even Itachi looking ready to defend their mother's honor. Unseen to the others, Naruto grit his teeth and gripped his hands to the points they bleed, although the wounds healed within moments. Mikoto looked up and opened her eyes as she traced the voice to a civilian to a certain area of the crowd. Her eyes were now in their Sharingan form as they spun briefly. The male civilian gasped in horror and terror, as if he was having nightmares while awake. The male gasped his heart before he fell unconscious. Around that civilian, a dozen other civilians fell asleep, albeit looking rather peacefully, showing they were caught in a genjutsu. Mother's Sharingan is strong as ever. She caught all of them with a single glance, and even created a separate genjutsu for that man specifically designed to cause terror before knocking him out. Itachi noticed with a smile under his mask. Minato blinked before snapping his fingers as an Umbu vanished using body flicker to wake up the civilians, with the male one looking away from Mikoto and still looking terrified even after waking up. By that time, Mikoto's Sharingan had turned off and returned to her normal eyes. Naruto's sensory-like abilities made him confused as Mikoto allowed him, Natsumi, and Yujito to stand now that her Sharingan was no longer active. Has Auntie Mikoto continued to train? I thought she was retired. Her chakra feels much stronger than before when I was a child. Naruto thought as he felt a massive surge in Mikoto chakra when her Sharingan was active, and that chakra vanished when it was deactivated. Jiraiya and Tsunade exchanged looks as they felt a sense of dread when Mikoto briefly showed off her Sharingan. That feeling of terror. It reminds me of when Sensei told us stories about Madara Uchiha told to him from Lord Second. Jiraiya whispered as an imagine of Madara Uchiha in his prime looking down at them with his 3-tomo Sharingan active. I know Mikoto is not nearly as strong as Madara was, but seeing that glare definitely gave me the same chills Sensei would have when we asked about the warring age. Grand Uncle Tobirama once declared to Sensei that Madara was the greatest threat to Konoha that ever existed. I know Grand Uncle died during the First Shinobi War, so his information is a bit outdated, but for someone like Grand Uncle to make a declaration like that shows how fearsome the Uchiha can be. Tsunade whispered back with a look of worry and unease aimed at Mikoto. And 3. However, both of them pretended everything was alright when Mizukage raised an eyebrow. Is something wrong? Tsunade-sama? Jiraiya-sama? Mei asked kindly, looking at them with a smile. Tsunade and Jiraiya waved their hands and returned their attention back to the stadium. Unseen by them, Killer Bee was smirking underneath his shades. That Uchiha female is sure is fine and a hottie, but her visual prowess makes everyone want to go to the potty. Killer Bee rapped in his mind, showing his appreciation for the female Uchiha head. Gyuki meanwhile sweat dropped and sighed as Killer Bee appeared sitting on his head in their mindscape. That was bad even for you, Bee, Gyuki chided as Bee started to yell at him. Speaking of actual important things, that Uchiha woman, her chakra isn't as dark as someone like Madara is, but the potency is rather strong. If I had to guess, it means she has given up a lot in her life and chosen to sever certain bonds. That kind of power from her Sharingan is different than if she is still mourning the death of her clan's members. It feels like strength from severing a bond that could still exist. Gyuki noted, much to Bee's confusion. Do you mean she is choosing to cut out someone important to her who is still alive? That is the source of her Sharingan strength? Bee asked as Gyuki nodded. Mikoto turned to Naruto with a warm smile before she looked at him with sad eyes. It's been too long, Naruto-kun. Last time I saw you, you managed to ride in my arms, but now you are a man. I feel like I missed a lot of your life. Mikoto admitted as she briefly saw a rather cute small Naruto looking up at her with trust, but now it was replaced by a handsome young man who still smiled at her. Naruto shook his head as he briefly looked over at the people from Kumo and then Yujito, who smiled at him. Mikoto noted this interaction with her eyes shining with pride. I missed you too. Even when I found my place in Kumo, I didn't forget about you or Itachi Nisan. When I heard about the massacre, I cried wondering if you guys were okay. Naruto admitted with a guilty expression as he looked away. Maybe if I was stronger then they wouldn't have had to, Naruto thought before he felt a soft hand press down on his head and gently rub his spiky hair. It's okay. Just knowing you thought of us even a little bit makes me happy. Mikoto told him warmly as she gazed at him with motherly affection, which made Naruto's heart throb with happiness. Mikoto leaned and so her lips were near his ear. Just between you and me, Itachi-kun was also very worried about you. He would occasionally look out from the clan grounds with a look of longing as if he was waiting for you to visit. He hid it well, but I am his mother, so he couldn't hide it well enough from me. Mikoto told him with a teasing smile when she saw Naruto's eyes widen with joy in a rather childish way before they returned to their normal cool expression. It's good that there is still some part of him that hasn't been ruined by the world we live in. Some part of his innocence still exists inside of him. Mikoto thought as she noticed that Naruto's eyes and pose showed his weariness. Naruto now had a look of someone who was holding up the entire world on his shoulders, or rather someone who knew what lengths they had to do to survive. I am sorry, Naruto-kun. I hope you will understand from these memories why I couldn't go find you when you got captured. Mikoto thought, but she expected he would show anger regardless. Mikoto then turned to the confused Yujito with an analyzing stare, making the pretty blonde look at her wearily. What are your intentions towards Naruto-kun? Mikoto asked seriously as her eyes seemed to take in every part of Yujito, including her reactions. Yujito frowned and crossed her arms over her chest. Why do you need to know? What is of your business what Naruto and I do? Yujito retorted rather indignantly. Mikoto smirked as she gazed at Naruto with a loving motherly gaze which caused Naruto to look away, unable to meet her eyes. What makes it my business is that you are a beautiful young woman and Naruto-kun is a young man. He could be easily confused and manipulated by someone like you. So I ask again, what is your relationship with Naruto-kun? Mikoto explained calmly, putting her hand on her hip and looking at the blonde expectantly. Naruto and Yujito looked at each other and blushed separately. Yujito closed her eyes with a slight blush, even as she mostly seemed to be unaffected by Mikoto's insinuation, while Naruto looked away pointedly with his face rather red. Mikoto seemed to be rather amused while silently nodding in approval. It seems to be mutual, and I suppose if Naruto-kun is happy then I can accept it. Mikoto thought to herself. Minato looked awkwardly at his son, not knowing what to say, especially as he found it hard to talk to his son about anything after all this time. Natsume's eyes narrowed as feelings of jealousy and envy popped up in her heart. Why is Nisan so close to that older blonde? What does she have that I don't? No, he is my twin and no one can ever take my spot in his heart. Natsume decided, but wisely chose to stay quiet. Meanwhile, Kushina was glaring at Mikoto for her implicit role as Naruto's mother, or at least acting in that role. C-san, correct? What must I do to transmit my memories to everyone here? Mikoto asked politely as she turned to the ninja from Kumo. C blinked as he looked over at Naruto, and then A, who both nodded their heads, with A flicking his wrist to show his approval. Alright, Mikoto Uchiha-san. Ideally, contact, even hand-on-shoulder contact would be best to connect our chakra for the memories to be shown. However, it will work nearly as effective if you stand a foot away from me and focus chakra, which I will sense and absorb along with the memories you wish to transmit. C explained, although he notably didn't look at her in the eyes. Natsume was confused while Mikoto smirked with amusement. Ah, I see. Despite his loyalty to Kumo, it seems C-san has a crush or at least physical attraction to me and worries what will happen if I stand next to him constantly. I could tease him, but I don't want to give the wrong impression. Mikoto thought as she nodded. Mikoto stood a foot away from C and started to form the tiger hand sign by clasping her hands together and holding her thumbs together. She finished the seal by having her two pointer fingers against each other pointing upwards. Now, Naruto-kun. Here is what I saw that day over 12 years ago. The day of your 4th birthday. Mikoto declared as he closed his eyes and transmitted their combined chakra to the stadium. About 12 years ago, Naruto and Natsume's 4th birthday. Mikoto was currently in her mid-20s, but despite that she looked virtually the same as she did in the present, besides slightly shorter hair and having a more modest outfit. This showed her youth and beauty seemed ageless for her, possibly due to her Uchiha legacy, chakra, or her kunoichi training. She was currently wearing something showing she was currently focused on being a mother to her children rather than active kunoichi. She wore a modest gray blouse and apron and dark blue jeans that hid her curves, but her beautiful face still shone along with her dark eyes. Her long black hair only reached her upper back instead of lower back. She was currently sitting in the gardens on the outside of the Uchiha lands as she sang. She threw a few shuriken into a target and nailed them into the center with one hand without looking. This showed despite being retired, her shuriken jutsu was still on point. Ka-san. Is something wrong? A 9-year-old and 2, Itachi Uchiha asked his mother politely as bowed, making Mikoto smile at her oldest son. Despite his youth, he had all the manners expected of the heir to the Uchiha clan nailed down to a T. My sweet Itachi-kun. Do you not wish to celebrate in the festival? I know Sasuke-kun will be at the festival celebrating with his friends, including little Natsumi-chan later. Mikoto asked her son with a warm smile as she gently rubbed her son's hair, making Itachi's eye twitch for being treated as a child. Ka-san, please. I am not that young anymore. Itachi reminded his mother with his face in a small frown. Mikoto laughed, finding her son's annoyed expression rather cute despite how mentally mature he was. Sorry. I know you are not a baby anymore, Itachi-kun. Mikoto apologized as Itachi sighed but shook his head, showing he was not seriously offended. Itachi's expression turned grim as he looked down, making his mother look down at him with concern. Itachi-kun? Is something the matter? Mikoto asked her son urgently as she placed a hand on his shoulder with concern and worry. Ka-san, why does the village celebrate this day? 4 years ago, it was a disaster for the village and a lot of people died. However, people treat this day as if it was some great celebration for the village. Itachi asked silently, making Mikoto's eyes widen at his question. Sometimes I forget how mature and wise you are. You are truly a prodigy, Itachi-kun. Mikoto praised as Itachi didn't seem to take her comment seriously, and just raised an eyebrow. Mikoto then sighed as she seemed to think over her answer, gazing up at the sky. The people of the Leaf need think this day was defeating the Ninetales and making the hero, the 4th Hokage, even more a hero. Mikoto replied, although her expression showed she didn't really believe the answer herself. Itachi frowned as he clenched his small fist. Even though we lost countless civilian, ninjas and even Lord Third as a result, the people here cannot deal with the reality it was a tragedy that cost people their lives? Itachi speculated, making Mikoto smile softly as her eyes showed pride before she sighed. In a similar way that the Uchiha clan believe that due to Madara being one of the founders we deserve special treatment inside the village. They both cannot deal with the reality of what has happened and only believes in what they want to believe. Mikoto mused, making Itachi nod slowly as they both shared a look of sadness. Including father, and the elders and most of the Uchiha. Itachi added, making Mikoto sigh as she didn't deny the accusation. Mikoto turned to Itachi as she looked at his eyes seriously. It will up to you, Itachi-kun, to change the perceptions of the Uchiha and get them to realize the reality that we are merely one part of the village and not something so special that would cause the village to die if we don't get special treatment. Mikoto warned Itachi, but her eyes did soften when Itachi nodded. Hi, Ka-san. I will do my best for the village. We also need to teach that same lesson to Sasuke-kun. We both know he might follow Tsusama's example. He does seek father's approval even if he doesn't show it. Itachi noted, making Mikoto nod with a look of determination. They both sat next to each other for a few minutes in peaceful silence, looking up at the sky. They even skipped rocks over the small private lake for fun with ease. Itachi brought out a set of kunai knives out of his pocket as Mikoto's eyes shone with amusement. Itachi-kun? Is this a special gift for the little Uzumaki twins? It is a special day after all for them too. It is their 4th birthday as well. Mikoto asked with a teasing smile as Itachi nodded. Yes, Ka-san. I had these specially forged for them later when they become genin. They are forged from chakra metal so the knives can be imbued with whatever chakra natures they possess in the future. I am sure Minato-sama and Kushina-sama will hold on to the kunai till then. Just something to strive for in the future. Itachi stated fondly, making Mikoto beam at him. They are rather cute, adorable kids. I can see them running up the wall when they hear you got them such a special present for them. Cute blonde and cute red-haired Uzumaki children. Mikoto giggled, making Itachi smile as well as an imagine of the young Uzumaki twins grinning up at them. They smiled before Itachi's smile grew small and then he took a deep sigh. Ka-san, you would be honest with me if I asked you something that might be dangerous, right? Itachi asked carefully as he bit his lip in nervousness, making Mikoto's eyes widen at her oldest child. I suppose that depends on what you needed to ask. I will say if there is something I won't tell you, then there must be a good reason for that. Mikoto promised after a minute of contemplation as she crossed her arms. Speak your mind. Anything you want to know I will try to answer to the best of my ability. Mikoto added. She sat back down by the stones surrounding the Uchiha clan ponds. Itachi then sat down next to his mother, as she looked down expectantly at him with a warm smile. She gestured with her head to show he had her full attention. What exactly makes Natsumi-chan so special? Itachi asked bluntly with his eyes full of seriousness as Mikoto appeared to be a fish out of water. Excuse me? What was that again, Itachi-kun? I don't understand what you are asking me. Mikoto gasped as she had to cough as she almost appeared to have swallowed air from the surprise. Itachi's expression turned even more serious as he crossed his arms and sat with his knees slanted, allowing him to rest his arms against his knees. Sasuke-kun and the children his age are too young to notice anything that isn't right in front of them, but Kasa and I am old enough to see the signs in the village. Itachi informed her as his eyes appeared to be analyzing every action Mikoto was taking now. Mikoto appeared to be trying to school his features into something normal, like a motherly expression, which Itachi noticed as his eyes narrowed at her attempt to smooth things out. I can understand Natsumi-chan is the daughter of the current Hokage who is the hero from the last great ninja war along with the red-haired death lady Uzumaki Kushina herself. I can understand that to civilians and even ninjas would consider her royalty to a degree just from parentage. However, that doesn't explain why it seems like part of the Kyuubi celebration is for her birthday, as if the two events are connected rather than happening at the same time just because it's the same day. Itachi noted as he watched his mother's reactions carefully. Mikoto was speechless for a few seconds as she seemed surprised at Itachi's deductive reasoning skills. The Kyuubi was defeated on this day 4 years ago, which so happened to be on the twins' birthday. Its death was only possible due to Lord Third's sacrifice and death. The Uzumaki twins also had a role in defeating the Kyuubi. Hence the village feels indebted to the twins for their role in defeating a being that could have spelled the end of the village. Mikoto explained calmly with only minor edits on the truth. To her surprise, Itachi frowned and shook his head as his eyes looked at her wearily. Ka-san, why are you lying to me? Tailed beasts cannot be truly killed as they are masses of chakra that will collect and reform if a tailed beast was ever damaged to the point of destroying their bodies. The closest I understand in controlling a rampage of the tailed beasts like the Kyuubi is to seal them away into Jinchuriki, aka human vessels. Itachi commented with a small smile when he saw his mother gasp and look at him with pure shock. Itachi-kun, where did you hear such terms and information? Mikoto demanded before her voice grew soft when she realized she was starting to yell. Itachi looked calm as he had a look of contemplation. Father showed me a secret tablet hidden in the Uchiha shrine. It was supposedly written by the Sage of Six Paths for the Uchiha clan many years ago. I saw certain information written when I read it with my Sharingan, but certain information was hidden. I could only speculate it would require a different sort of visual jutsu to unlock more information on the stone tablet. I also read scrolls in Father's study which he indicated he would show me later as the heir to the Uchiha clan legacy. Itachi explained as he blinked. Mikoto looked sad when Itachi's eyes opened, revealing 2 Tomo Sharingan in each eye as they seemed to stare into her soul and show Itachi love and determination. Itachi-kun, if only you knew that the Sharingan means you have suffered loss and will likely continue to suffer loss as its powers grow. I wish my children never unlocked it, as it meant you would more than likely to walk the happier path without its power. Mikoto thought sadly as Itachi's Sharingan stared at her for a few moments before they vanished, showing Itachi's normal eyes looking at her curiously. Sai, you really are a smart child, my dear Itachi-kun. Your insight and ability to see past lives surpasses a lot of adults, if I am being honest. You would probably be the first Uchiha Hokage if someone from our clan was given the honor of that title. Mikoto praised proudly as she patted Itachi on the cheek warmly, with her smile being soft and true. Itachi just closed his eyes and leaned into his mother's warm hand, and unlike before, he didn't push her away. If he already knows this much, then there is no reason why I shouldn't be upfront with him. He is different than Sasuke-kun and his generation. His reasoning skills is already on par with the Jonins. The answers, however, may not bring him joy though. Mikoto decided as her eyes softened. You are not wrong. The reason why the Uzumaki twins are celebrated as heroes is not simply because they are Lord 4Th's only children, or they are the heir to the near-extinct Uzumaki clan. Their birthday was the day the Kyuubi was defeated by sealing away the tailed beast's power into 2 human vessels, making them the Kyuubi Jinchuriki. Mikoto admitted, deciding to that her eldest son deserved the answers he asked for. Itachi opened his eyes as Mikoto traced his cheek before her hand rested on her lap once again. I see. That does make sense. I can see why the villagers would consider their birthday as a day of celebration as well. Itachi mused, putting a hand on his chin. Then Itachi's smile vanished as he gazed into his mother's eyes with his own eyes narrowed. Then tell me, Ka-san, why does the village treat Natsumi-chan as a hero while showing hidden but notable disdain for Naruto-kun? Itachi asked sharply as his eyes showed a protective look similar to one he gave to his own younger brother Sasuke. His eyes. He really is too smart for his own good. I am glad that Itachi-kun is protective of Naruto-kun as well. That poor child is far too alone for his sake. Mikoto thought proudly, although her own heart clenched at the thought of the blonde Uzumaki child. Itachi-kun, this information was supposed to be hidden as an S-rank secret, but somehow the information leaked to the general public. I suppose there is no reason to keep this hidden from you. However, I ask you not repeat this to Sasuke-kun. He doesn't need to know. He is still young and innocent, and will not be able to understand even if you explain it to him. Mikoto stated calmly, but her tone showed a slight coolness, making Itachi shudder briefly before nodding. I promise, Ka-san. Itachi promised before a slight smirk appeared on his face. I have to say, Ka-san, despite father being more well known for his visual prowess and abilities, you frighten me as well. People should not underestimate you just for being more focused on Sasuke-kun and me. Itachi added, making Mikoto giggle, and waved to him cheerfully. Oh, Itachi-kun. You flatter me. If you keep up that charm, then you will have a sweet girl in the future to be your partner. Mikoto noted, but her smirk showed she already knew her frightening reputation to her son. Mikoto's smirk faded as she took a deep sigh and bit her lip as she gazed into the sky. The reason why Naruto-kun and Natsumi-chan are treated differently despite both being children of the 4th Hokage and Jinchuriki is the way they are Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Mikoto revealed with her face so serious and grim as she looked Itachi directly in the eyes. So, they are Jinchuriki, huh? Vessels of the Kyuubi chakra and power? I see. That makes sense. I can understand that if viewed from a certain lens, the humans who keep the tailed beasts from harming the population could be seen as heroes. Itachi mused, although Mikoto could see Itachi have a slight disbelief in his eyes as well. Yes, depending on how you look at it. Jinchuriki can be seen as heroes, but Itachi-kun. Make no mistake. Most villages see Jinchuriki as either weapons for the sake of war at best or at worst a substitute for whatever harm or damage the tailed beasts might have done at any point in the village's history. Mikoto warned before taking another deep breath. Lord Third sacrificed his life during the Kyuubi attack to separate the Kyuubi into two parts, which got sealed into the two newborn twin children of the 4th Hokage, who also happened to have the Uzumaki bloodline, Natsumi and Naruto Uzumaki. That act cemented Lord Third's legacy as the Hokage who lived the longest and the man who sacrificed his life for the village most in the village history. Mikoto added with a smile. Both Itachi and Mikoto took a minute as they closed their eyes and prayed to show their respect for the departed Hiruzen Sarutobi. Itachi then opened his eyes as he stared at Mikoto again, with his eyes analyzing and showing 100 thoughts at once. How did the power of the Kyuubi get separated into two humans? There isn't any information from the Uchiha archives about a tailed beast being in two Jinchuriki at the same time. Did Lord Third somehow separate the chakra into two equal parts that exactly the same? Or perhaps he separated the chakra into yin and yang chakra right down the middle, like splitting yin-yang style into the components that form chakra itself? Itachi asked sharply as he crossed his arms. He even knows about yin-yang style? This child is truly a genius far beyond his age. He might truly become Hokage in the future. Mikoto thought to herself in amazement at Itachi's knowledge and intuition before she shook her head. Perhaps things would be different if the Kyuubi power was split in those ways. However, that is not what happened with Natsumi-chan and Naruto-kun having parts of the Kyuubi sealed inside of them. Mikoto stated sadly as he briefly clenched her fist in anger, making Itachi look at her with concern. Ka-san? Itachi asked as he placed a hand on her arm with concern. Mikoto smiled at her son's concern as she placed her other hand on top of his. The pure chakra and power of the Kyuubi was sealed inside of Natsumi-chan, while the soul and malice of the Kyuubi was sealed inside of Naruto-kun. This act cost Lord Third his life, and according to Minato-sama and Kushina-chan, his final wishes was for the knowledge of their burdens to be hidden from public for their sakes. Mikoto stated sadly as she sighed and looked like she grieved. Itachi's eyes went wide with surprise as he appeared to gape and open and close his mouth several times as if trying to swallow the information he was given. Mikoto gave him a minute as she continued to smile softly at her eldest son, letting him settle on his own. It's okay, Itachi-kun. I know this information is very shocking, and I am sure it's not what you were expecting. Originally, the information was only supposed to be known to the clan heads and the Hokage closet colleagues like Jiraiya-sama, Tsunade-sama, Kushina-chan, and Kakashi-san. I was only told due to being Fugaka's wife, and even I swore to keep that information secret. The official story was that Lord Third sealed away the Kyuubi away with him in death, but as you can tell, that was not what happened. Mikoto assured him as Itachi's eyes narrowed as he glanced at the Hokage statues, specifically the heads of the 3rd Hokage and the 4th Hokage. If that was the official story, then why would the village treat Natsumi-chan like a hero then? If people believe that Lord Third was able to defeat a tailed beast on his own, then if anything the family of the 3rd Hokage would be worshipped to this degree, not the Lord Fourth children. Itachi reasoned as he closed his eyes and put a hand under his chin. Mikoto decided to wait as she patiently let her son figure things out on his own. She placed her hands on her lap as she gazed at him expectantly with a small smile. Someone leaked the truth to the public about Natsumi-chan and Naruto-kun, didn't they? The villagers have rationalized that keeping the Kyuubi at bay makes them the heroes who keep the leaf safe? Itachi stated in realization as he looked up at his mother. Mikoto sighed and nodded. Yes, somehow on their first birthday information about their burdens was leaked to the village, and soon the villagers started to demand answers. Whether it was civilians or even ninjas, people wanted to know the truth. The thing about information is once it's out there, there is no real way to clench or control how people see that information. As strong and as many admirable traits Minato-sama has, he couldn't hide his children's burden once it was revealed to the masses. The most he could do was reassure the villagers that his children were not monsters but actually heroes who kept the Kyuubi from attacking again. Mikoto noted as Itachi seemed to be uncomfortable with that answer. Hence the villagers followed the lead of the hero Minato Namikaze and took his word for it. They treated the daughter of the legendary 4th Hokage as a hero and savior, and this day, which was her birthday, became a day of celebration of her birth, and the day the Kyuubi was defeated. Itachi realized. Mikoto nodded but then raised an eyebrow silently as she seemed to be testing Itachi. So now can you read between the lines, Itachi-kun? The reason why the village favors one child over another despite them having the same blood and the same potential? One single choice altered whatever fate they could have had if they never became Jinchuriki. Mikoto thought as she waited for her son to give an answer. Itachi focused on the stature of the 4th Hokage as he seemed to piece things together. Naruto-kun, people see him as some sort of demon or monster? For holding the soul and malice of the Kyuubi inside of him? Itachi mumbled in realization as he looked up at Mikoto desperately as if he was begging her to prove him wrong. Tell him that the reason why the village was cold to Naruto only wasn't something like this. Mikoto was silent as she looked away and clenched her fist silently. Answer me, mother. Tell me that this village, the Uchiha and everyone else risks their lives isn't like every other village. We wouldn't treat a child like a weapon or a threat for holding a tailed beast inside of them. I don't care if Naruto-kun only holds the soul of the Kyuubi inside of him. He shouldn't suffer the same hatred other villages do to their Jinchuriki. Especially when Natsumi-chan holds the actual strength of the tailed beast and is treated like a princess. Itachi shouted as his 2 Tomo Sharingan activated due to his anger. And 3. Mikoto's eyes widened at Itachi's anger before a soft smile appeared on her face. You truly care about Naruto-kun, huh? He is basically another young brother you can watch over Itachi? You really are a kind child even if people your age think you are too cool to hang out with. Mikoto mused sweetly as she gently placed a hand on Itachi's cheek. Itachi's anger didn't seem to vanish as he continued to glance into her eyes with his Sharingan still active as he watched his mother for answers. Ka-san, please don't change the subject. I need you to tell me that this village is better than the others. Itachi demanded. His Sharingan seemed to spin as if to show the conflict in his heart. Itachi-kun, I won't lie to you. Very well. The truth is you are right. It might not as rampant or obvious as the other villagers as their love and respect for Kushina-chan and Minato-sama is so great. However, whenever they are looking forward and smiling with Natsumi-chan, the rest of the village is sneering and glaring at Naruto-kun like he is the source of all the problems that have ever happened. Mikoto told him seriously as Itachi grit his teeth as his eyes narrowed. I don't understand. I wouldn't want the fate of Jinchuriki on anyone, but why is only Naruto-kun the one who is treated like dirt? Just because they don't throw garbage at him while his parents are around doesn't mean these people wouldn't be happy if Naruto-kun broke his leg. Itachi demanded, panting in anger. Mikoto brought Itachi into a hug and held him even as Itachi started to tear up in anger and grief. My sweet Itachi, I have wondered that too. Just because everyone sees Natsumi as some savior and Naruto some sort of demon doesn't make that the truth. These are just arbitrary titles people have decided onto children who didn't get to pick what burdens or gifts they inherited. I can understand your anger, Itachi. It hurts me when I see the glares sent Naruto's way. Mikoto told gently as she seemingly chose to disregard the honorifics for a moment to show how sincere she was being. Itachi seemed to gaze into her soul as he looked her in the eyes. His eyes showed neither judgment nor condemnation but rather curiosity. Itachi-kun, I am not Naruto-kun's mother. Whether I personally feel Naruto-kun is getting the short end of the stick in his family and village only means so much. It's really up to the Hokage and his mother who can make any sort of real change for him. Mikoto admitted with regret as she looked down. To her surprise, she felt Itachi wrap his own smaller arms around her, making her at her son with wide eyes. I know, Ka-san. If Natsumi-chan has the entire village and her parents, godparents, and her parents' friends on her side, then I suppose Naruto-kun has us on his side. No matter what anyone else thinks. Itachi assured her as he closed his eyes and leaned into her embrace. Mikoto felt tears well up in the corners of her eyes as she felt untold amount of pride at her eldest son. That's right. He might not share our blood, but he is your brother, and my son just as much as Sasuke-kun is to us. Mikoto whispered into her eldest child's ear. Mikoto could only see the top of Itachi's hair as his face was buried into her stomach, but she could almost feel her son's mouth turning into a smile. Hi. We shall have to get something for Naruto-kun for his birthday as well, Itachi noted as his tone showed expectation towards his mother. Mikoto just smirked as he held on to her son, and the mother and son Uchiha just stayed in each other's embrace without a worry in the world. Eventually Itachi pulled back but had a small smile on his face as Mikoto beamed at her child. Ka-san. Tu-san took Sasuke-kun out somewhere today, right? I believe the plan is for us to group together tonight for the twins' birthday party? Itachi asked, looking up at Mikoto as Mikoto's smile turned onto a smirk. I am glad you remembered. I thought that Fugaku and Sasuke-kun deserved some father and son time today, so I suggested Fugaku take Sasuke out today. Despite how stern your father is, he is open to reason. Usually when I suggest very strongly like I did today. Mikoto told Itachi cheerfully. You are much more scary than people give you credit for, Ka-san. I think you would be the only person who could convince Tu-san like that. Itachi remarked with a sweat drop as Mikoto just giggled at his expression. Ah, Itachi-kun. You are sweet. Mikoto squealed before her face seemed to make an 180 out of nowhere. Mikoto's face seemed to be depressed as she looked down at her feet. Unless you don't like spending time with me, Itachi-kun? Would you rather spend time with your father like Sasuke-kun? I can understand boys do tend to idolize their fathers, and I don't have a special fame like your father, so I am not as cool as him. Mikoto suggested quietly, with her voice cracking and breaking with unseen tears. Itachi's eyes widened as he rushed forward to hold onto Mikoto's hands and bring one up so Mikoto's face was staring at his own. Of course, not, Ka-san. I love spending time with you. This time we are spending now is incredibly precious to me, and I would not trade this time for anything. Itachi assured her urgently, as it seemed seeing his mother's tears made him rather bashful. Mikoto sad looked into Itachi's eyes for a moment before she grinned at him and patted him on the forehead. You were acting, won't you, Ka-san? Itachi asked drily with a frown as he watched his mother's attitude change back 180. His face was so dry he could soak up a lake. Mikoto giggled as she patted his head again like a child. A little, but I do love our mother and son time. I know you will soon be busy, so this time alone together is very important to me as well. Mikoto admitted as she kissed his forehead again, with Itachi just closing his eyes and smiling. What should we do then, Ka-san? We still have a few hours to go before the party, and if this time is just us, we should try to make it count. Itachi asked as he looked up at her curiously. What should we do? Time alone like this is rare, and anywhere we go out will surely spoil this time together with other people. Mikoto thought to herself, showing a possessive attitude towards her son. Let's eat lunch here first, and then decide. I will cook your favorites, Mikoto suggested sweetly. Itachi blinked and nodded as they went back into the building, and Mikoto went into the kitchen to make Itachi's favorite foods. They happily ate lunch together as the home-cooked meal tasted even better than usual. Soon afterwards they went back into the backyard, and Itachi followed Mikoto into the training ground to his surprise. Let's spar, Itachi-kun. I would like to see how strong you are. Don't worry if we won't go too far, I just want to see how far you have gotten. Mikoto asked Itachi, who tilted his head, which Mikoto smiled, thinking her son still had his cute moments despite his maturity. Ka-san? Is it really appropriate to spar in these casual outfits? Father and Sasuke-kun might get the wrong idea if we see us later with our clothes dirty. Itachi noted as Mikoto looked down as if she just realized it might be an issue. Itachi changed into some battle armor that was tailored for his shorter frame with his headband proudly on his forehead, while Mikoto changed into her old green Jonin outfit, that a flak jacket that was unzipped near her but had a blue shirt underneath. This allowed her to move with ease and yet not be exposed, with her round firm bouncing around. She had black pants that reached her ankles and blue ninja shoes to complete the outfit. Her Konoha headband was on her arm as tied her hair into a single ponytail to keep her bangs out of her hair. Ready, Itachi-kun? Give me your best shot, Mikoto asked with a smirk as she got into a stance. Hi, Ka-san, Itachi replied with determination as they dashed toward each other. They both activated their two Tomo Sharingan, showing they were getting serious. Seemingly several hours later, Mikoto had dirt and sweat on her outfit as she wiped some blood from her cheek. However, she stood over an exhausted Itachi who panting on his knees. His two Tomo Sharingan looked up at his mother's two Tomo Sharingan as he coughed. His own Sharingan soon flickered and returned to his own eyes due to his exhaustion, while Mikoto's Sharingan was still active but her face showed pride. There was dozens of kunai and shuriken surrounding them, showing it was not just a physical fight but had many weapons as well. Mikoto took note as she grabbed a scroll, and with a quick hand sign there was several puffs of smoke as the weapons sealed themselves into the scroll for future use. Pant, you are still so strong, Ka-san. I am still not at your level, Itachi noted as he wiped away sweat from his forehead and wiped away his blood from own cheek. Itachi-kun, you are unbelievably talented for your age. You could be the next coming of the Yellow Flash due to your talent and abilities. You are far stronger than people of your age group, and even if you took the Chunin exam by yourself, I have no doubt you would pass it with ease. Do not let yourself think you are weak or inadequate. Your strength will only continue to grow. My strength isn't as well known as Wicked Eye Fugaku, but I am still not slouch. My Uchiha clan heritage and strength makes me capable of leading the clan in his absence. Mikoto noted before she willingly deactivated her own Sharingan and squatted down to be at Itachi's level. I am proud of you, my child. You are strong and you will only continue to get stronger and wiser as you grow up. Mikoto told him with pride and affection as she placed a gentle kiss on his forehead. Itachi closed his eyes, but a warm smile appeared as he seemed to just enjoy his mother's affection at this moment. Thank you, Ka-san, I love you, Itachi replied back after a moment of hesitation as he was embarrassed to say it out loud. Mikoto kissed his forehead before pulling back but kept her hands on his shoulders so she could look Itachi in the eyes. My dear Itachi-kun, I will always love you and Sasuke-kun with all my heart. You are my children and pride and joy. You will always make me proud no matter what path you choose in life. Mikoto stated sincerely and with pure motherly love as she looked down at her eldest child. Itachi nodded as he rushed forward and embraced his mother, who happily returned the hug as they continued to just enjoy this moment where mother and child could just be happy and content together. I don't know if you will ever understand how much I love you and how happy you and Sasuke-kun make me. I suppose that is the true love of motherhood and the bond between parent and child. Mikoto mused. Itachi-kun, you might know this, but I haven't completely retired despite motherhood. They are no longer as sharp as when I fought in the Third Shinobi War, but I am no slouch. If it comes down to it, I could give even your father a fierce fight if we fought as full strength. My eyes are not as advanced, being only 2 tomo unlike his 3 tomo, but there is still a reason the clan would follow my suggestions if push come to shove. Mikoto chided as she casually tossed 5 kunai into the air and caused them to ricochet off each other in mid-air and land next to Itachi. They were positioned in such a way they could have formed a 5-pointed star if you connected them in the dirt. And 4. Itachi looked sheepish as he rubbed his head in embarrassment for underestimating his mother, as he gazed into his mother's 2 tomo Sharingan for a second before they deactivated. Don't worry, Itachi-kun. I am sure even Kushina-chan believes I have retired like she has. The difference between us is I realize I will need to keep myself in shape if I want to tutor and teach my children. Mikoto noted with a hum as Itachi gave her a questioning look. Itachi-kun, don't worry, I am well aware you will go far and become strong without my help. I was talking about Sasuke-kun. I know he will want to be like his beloved big brother and become a shinobi same day. Mikoto teased as Itachi looked a tad flustered and looked away. Sasuke-kun, I know being a shinobi is my path, but I wish Sasuke-kun could choose another path in life. I am clan heir, so being a shinobi is expected for me, but Sasuke-kun should be able to choose whatever he wants be. Itachi noted sadly as Mikoto sighed but didn't disagree. I wish Itachi-kun could have chosen his own path as well, but Fugaku would never allow his heir to show the strength of the clan. Mikoto silently admitted as she was not blind to the pressure Fugaku was in and how much he expected of Itachi. One day Sasuke-kun will graduate from the academy and need someone to practice with, especially if he awakens his own Sharingan. I have to improve my skills so when that day comes Sasuke-kun can come to me and not be embarrassed I am his mother and sparring partner. Mikoto pledged as her Sharingan flickered on, seemingly to show her resolve before flickering off again. Itachi nodded before biting his lip as he showed some concern. Ka-san, I am not sure where I will be when the day comes. I might be a jonin by then, so I will be out of village a lot to do missions for the sake of the village. As much as I would love to teach Sasuke-kun, I can realistically admit I might not have time to spare much for him. Itachi admitted sadly as Mikoto grabbed his shoulder to give him comfort. But surely father will be able to teach Sasuke-kun if I am not able to? Itachi asked as Mikoto gave him a sad smile. Your father, no matter how it looks, loves you both very much. He is simply stern as expected as the current head of the Uchiha clan. Mikoto assured the confused Itachi. However, by the time Sasuke-kun is old enough to require specialized training from you or your father, Fugaku will still need to devote his time to make sure you are worthy of being heir to the Uchiha clan's name and Sharingan power. He will not make much time for Sasuke-kun, and Sasuke-kun will still need someone to spar with. That is why I am keeping my skills fresh, so that way I can guide Sasuke-kun in a way he can be proud of. Mikoto reminded Itachi. Itachi winced but didn't disagree with his mother as he took a deep breath. Thank you, Ka-san. It is not fair that Sasuke-kun has to live under my shadow, but he will surpass me one day, I believe. Sasuke-kun is lucky he has you, mother. We all are lucky to have you. Itachi thanked her warmly as Mikoto smiled at him sweetly. My sweet child. I hope Kushina and Minato can learn from this example and see Naruto-kun for who he is and not what he contains. If only the village could see him the way I see him. Mikoto thought sadly as she gazed up in the sky. Itachi looked at her knowingly before a slight smirk appeared on his face. Ka-san? What gift do you plan to give Naruto-kun? I am sure Natsumi-chan will have dozens of gifts for her already, but Naruto-kun will appreciate anything from you. Itachi asked as he seemed to subtly bring out the kunai sets he was planning to give to them. This child. He really is too smart for his own good. Trying to bait me to give them a better gift than the one he is planning to give them. Mikoto thought with a smirk. Well, Natsumi-chan is rather cute and girly, so I had this tailored for her. Mikoto stated as she pulled out a scroll and made a hand sign. In a poof smoke, a rather beautiful golden kimono with white flowers near the middle. Itachi eyes widened, showing surprise and an impressed look. I think Kushina-chan will both squeal at the gift and glare at me for thinking of it first. Mikoto commented with a smirk at her friend and rival predictable reaction. And imagine of Kushina violet eyes shining with tears when Natsumi hugged Mikoto's legs. Then the imagine changed to see Kushina glaring daggers and cracking her knuckles when Natsumi called Mikoto the best. Itachi's sweat dropped, seemingly perplexed at his mother's and her best friend friendship, while Mikoto seemed to be rather amused. Then Mikoto's smile grew softer as she gestured Itachi to come closer. This one is Naruto-kun. It's something for his future. Mikoto commented as another puff of smoke appeared next to the kimono, making Itachi's eyes widen in surprise at what he was seeing. This is? Itachi gasped as he looked down at what the smoke was showing in his mother. Mikoto smiled sweetly as she waved her hand lightly as if wasn't a big deal. If that is your reaction, Itachi-kun, then I can't wait to see Naruto-kun's reaction. I get to pick what to do with this, and if I want to share it with Naruto-kun, it's my choice. I don't really care if it's considered out of the norm. Mikoto stated calmly as Itachi stared down for a moment before a warm smile appeared on his face. I see. This really does show how much you care about Naruto-kun. I suppose a gift like this will cause ripple, but for someone who cares about her children, you don't care how it looks, huh? Alright, Ka-san. I approve. Itachi noted as Mikoto just smiled as there was another puff of smoke as her gift seemed to vanish again, or rather was sealed back up. Look at the time. I think the twins' birthday party should be soon. We should get going, Itachi-kun. We don't want to be the last ones there. Mikoto commented as she looked up to see the sun was now in the evening portion of the day. But first let's change into some more fitting clothing. It wouldn't look good to be dirty and bloody to the twins' birthday. Mikoto teased as Itachi looked down at his sweaty clothes and nodded. About 30 minutes later they had both taken showers and got dressed into more formal clothing. Itachi had dressed into some black dress pants and dark blue long-sleeved shirt. Mikoto had dressed into something both formal and sensual. Mikoto dressed into a stunning light blue one-piece dress that went rather well with her dark eyes. Mikoto's dress ended at her knees, showing some of her long legs as she wore some high-heeled heels that showed off ankles and heels. The dress itself had straps and a rather notable V-neck cleavage showing off her large. The dress curved in all the right places as her thin waist and motherly hips were emphasized even more. Her wedding ring glittered in the faint sunlight on her left hand. Itachi looked up in surprise, seeing the sun dropping, before nodding as both mother and child stood up and walked together out of the compound. I think we lost track of time. It's been a while since I got pushed to my limits like this. Thank you, mother, for sparring with me. Itachi told his mother warmly as they walked together, seemingly the festival still going strong despite the time of day. Mikoto smiled sweetly at her son before looking at the festival with a slight disapproving look and sighed. Anytime, my child. You just need to tell me ahead of time and I will only make time for my children. Mikoto promised him as Itachi nodded. To think this festival is pretty much a celebration of Natsumi-chan's birth and her becoming the hero of the village. I hope Naruto-kun will like this gift, and hopefully he doesn't feel like he has to live in her shadow. Mikoto thought as she waved with a slightly forced smile at the vendors waving at her and Itachi. Itachi looked at his mother out the corner of his eyes with a slight sad expression, but kept his small smile up when the vendors smiled at them. He frowned when he saw several men give his mother looks of desire, but Mikoto's glare made them look away in fear. Itachi smiled softly, seeing his mother could more than take care of herself. Eventually they got to the Uzumaki Namake's household. It was a fairly large house fitting the household of the current Hokage and his family. The lights were on and both Uchiha could hear loud cheering and laughter from inside the house. Itachi raised an eyebrow as he looked at the windows blankly. Ka-san. It seems we are a tad later than we thought. It seems they already celebrating the twins' birthday. Itachi noted as Mikoto rubbed her head in embarrassment. He may be a little late. Mikoto admitted before she coughed when she saw her son give her a dry look. Hey, for all we know we are on time and they started before us, Mikoto added as Itachi just nodded his head in a complacent expression. Huh. Whatever you say, Ka-san. Itachi replied back, showing he didn't quite believe her. Itachi and Mikoto went to the doorknob and knocked, waiting patiently for someone to answer. Coming. Just wait a moment. I am getting our guests. A cheerful, familiar feminine voice chanted as she seemed to be in the middle of something. After a few seconds, the door was open as a grinning Kushina Uzumaki answered the door with her cheeks flustered as if she was just recently laughing. Similar to Mikoto despite it being 12 years in the past, Kushina Uzumaki looked virtually the same as her present state. Her bright red hair went down to her hips in a free-flowing pattern except for the back portion that had it tied into a long ponytail that went down to her lower back. Her Konoha headband rested on her forehead, as she had 2 clips to keep her hair from covering her eyes and bangs. This made her gorgeous face even more apparent, as her violet eyes shone with happiness and glee. She had the most faint amount of pink lipstick along with casual blue jeans and an orange sleeveless top. Her wedding ring shone with a diamond on her left hand, showing her marriage status along with faint pink fingernail polish. She completed the outfit wearing rather casual mini boots that went up her ankles, leaving a small patch of skin visible from the edge of her boots to her jeans. It's annoying, but I can understand why Kushina and I are some of the most attractive kunoichi in the village besides Tsunade-sama in her prime years. There are even perverts out there calling out MILFs, and despite Kushina not knowing what that term means, I'm fully aware of that slang. Mikoto thought with resigned distaste. And 5. I can't exactly go around killing everyone who makes a comment on our good looks, can I? Mikoto thought darkly as her inner self showed herself with her 2 Tomo Sharingan glaring at random guys and making them drop in comas with their eyes rolled back and drool coming out their mouths. Maybe that is why men actually leave me alone. They know I could knock them out with just a glance. Poor Kushina-chan is naive to a fault, and I swear if Minato-sama's reputation of being the legendary Yellow Flash wasn't something every man fear, Kushina-chan would have been asked out on countless dates and confessions, married or not. Mikoto mused with an inner smirk but kept her face calm and sweet on the outside. Mikoto-chan. Itachi-kun. Kushina squealed, seeing her best friend and her son waiting at the door. She placed her hands together with her violet eyes shining with happiness. Good evening, Kushina-san. Sorry we are late. We lost track of time. Itachi apologized calmly with a bow to show his respect for the female Uzumaki. Before Mikoto could give her greeting or explanation, Kushina scooped her up in a tight hug as she wrapped her arms around her back, with Mikoto blinking for a moment in surprise. We don't care how late you are or why. What matters to us is that you are here and now for us. Good evening. Mikoto-chan, Itachi-kun. Kushina explained softly as she placed her chin on Mikoto's chin and rested her eyes. Mikoto's eyes grew soft at her best friend's affection and sincerity as she wrapped her own arms around her best friend's back. Itachi just smiled as his mother and her best friend shared an embrace, showing their deep friendship and affection. Thank you, Kushina-chan, we are here. Mikoto replied back, just as sweet and kind as Kushina was to her. You sure dressed fancy, Miko-chan. Are you trying to impress someone today? Kushina whispered into her ear with teasing glint in her eyes. Mikoto's eye twitched as her eyes scanned her friend's outfit. Humph. You well know my heart belongs to one man only. I am sure lots of men think of you no matter what you wear, Kushina-chan. Mikoto retorted in a quiet whisper. Kushina's eye twitched as well before both women giggled, much to Itachi's confusion. Kushina embraced Mikoto for about a minute before she pulled away, but her cheeks were still red and her face was grinning as she beamed down at Itachi. Itachi-kun. I swear you gotten even taller than the last time I saw you. At this rate, Miko-chan will need to keep the girls away, or you will have a bunch of girls trying to become your girlfriend. Kushina claimed with a teasing glint and smile. Itachi just nodded politely as he glanced his mother, giving Kushina the stink eye and glare from behind her back. Whatever you say, Kushina-san. I don't have any plans to get a girlfriend anytime soon, but that is probably due to my young age. I am sure I will get a girlfriend eventually that Ka-san will be proud of. Itachi replied back calmly as he saw his mother grin at him while Kushina pouted. Kushina-san makes me sound old. Can't you just call me Auntie Kushina? Or even Big Sis? Kushina pouted down at the confused Itachi, who looked at his mother, who gave Kushina the most flat look she could. Her expression was so flat and dry, all the moisture around her seemed to dry up and turn to dust. You are a bit old to be a big sister, Kushina-chan. Mikoto reminded her with a sigh as Kushina crossed her arms over her large chest and glared at her best friend. I am only in my 20s. I am not old at all, Databane. Kushina retorted using her verbal tic as her hair started to move on its own. Oops, it's Kushina's classic QB tails hair. I must have hit a nerve, I should apologize. Mikoto thought as she stared at Kushina, eyes seemingly turning darker by the second with her hair eerily moving in tail-like appendages. Kushina started to walk slowly towards Mikoto as if in a trance as Mikoto frowned and took a step back but was secretly getting into a stance. Itachi luckily was much wiser than his age suggested. Excuse us, Kushina Obachan, Itachi stated politely, but he was notably closing his eyes with a bush, showing this was rather embarrassing for him to refer to her in such familiar tones. Kushina and Mikoto turned to Itachi, who refused to look at either woman in the eyes and seemed to find the wall behind Kushina something interesting to watch. Obachan, Kushina whispered as his eyes returned to their bright violet look and her hair returned to their free-flowing ponytail like before. Mikoto looked at Itachi, and she looked ready to defend him if needed as she watched Kushina carefully. Itachi-kun, you are so cute, Databane. If you ever need anything, just call your beloved auntie, and she will come running. Day or night. Kushina squealed as she dashed forward and glomped Itachi like he was a teddy bear. Gur can't breathe, Itachi mumbled as his face was squeezed into Kushina's large chest as Kushina kept squeezing and embracing him like she needed to show much she loved him at this moment. That woman, who does she think she is embracing my son like that? Mikoto thought angrily as her eye twitched and her teeth gritted watching her best friend treat her child like he was a toddler that needed to cuddle. Kushina-chan, I think the party has started already and we are outside. Maybe we should go inside now, Mikoto suggested after half of a minute watching Itachi be embraced into the beautiful redhead's chest. Kushina rubbed her head as she stepped back and let Itachi slip from her embrace. She looked rather sheepish as she sent a look of embarrassment at both Itachi and Mikoto. Itachi wandered back to his mother's side as he took several deep breaths as his blue face turned back into a normal state after he managed to get some much-needed air. Sorry about Itachi-kun. I got a bit too excited. You are just so serious all the time that Auntie comment made you look so cute I couldn't resist, Kushina admitted as she looked down at Itachi with a sheepish smile. Itachi shook his head showing he was not offended by Kushina's action and bowed showing once again how mature he was. Luckily my Itachi-kun is still so young. If it was someone older or more perverted, they might have died for a hug like that. I shudder to think what would happen if that was Jiraiya-sama in that position, Mikoto thought with a shudder. Legendary ninja he might be. One of Konoha Sannin and teacher of Lord Fourth he is. However, respectful of women is not. I remember the stories Kushina-chan told me of him peeping on her in the hot springs and how she almost maimed in him response, or the stories of him peeping on Tsunade-sama and being brought to near death. Mikoto thought with notable lack of empathy as she knew even to this day Jiraiya's favorite activity was research, aka peeping on women, especially kunoichi in hot springs or private baths. Let's go inside, Kushina stated as she rubbed her head and opened the door first as she gestured for Itachi and Mikoto to follow her. They entered and the first thing Mikoto noticed was how lively the party was. There were bright lights in the modest but comfortable home of the Uzumaki Namikaze clan. There was drinks and food on several tables for easy access, and Mikoto briefly noted a table with a stack of presents with many open presents on the floor with wrapping paper and gift bags all over the floor. It seems all of our friends showed up for this party. Almost seems like it was the birthday party for the fire daimyo himself, although I am not surprised. Minato-sama is pretty much the most respected man in the land of fire, Mikoto noted. Mikoto-san. Itachi-kun. Welcome. I am glad you could come, Minato greeted cheerfully, although he did notably trail off when he saw exactly what Mikoto was wearing to his children's birthday party. Mikoto smirked when she saw the honorable and happily married Minato Namikaze's eyes drift to her chest and legs by instinct. She could almost feel the glare sent by Kushina to her husband, who quickly looked away looking flustered. Still got it. Kushina is lucky I only have eyes for one man, Mikoto noted cheerfully as she saw her husband with her younger son riding in his arms. Fugaka-kun! I am here! Mikoto yelled as her husband turned around to see his lovely wife. Mikoto's smile grew larger when she saw her husband give the patented Uchiha glare to the many adults staring at her. She seemingly was flattered at her jealous husband marking her as his. Mikoto? Why are you? Fugaka asked sternly, but Mikoto could see both desire and affection in his dark eyes. Kaa-san. Ni-chan. Sasuke's young voice chirped when he saw his mother and older brother, as he reached out towards them from his father's arms. Mikoto smiled sweetly at her youngest son as she briefly turned around to look back at Itachi. Sasuke-chan. Do you want to go to Itachi-kun? He missed you after all. Mikoto asked as his eyes looked between Itachi and Sasuke, making Itachi nod after a moment, getting his mother's hidden message. "Hello, Sasuke-kun. Come here for me, please," Itachi asked calmly as he walked over to his father and bowed. Fugaku nodded to his oldest son even as Sasuke's eyes seemed to widen and a wide grin appeared on his face. "Nichan! Nichan!" Sasuke squealed in delight as his seemingly toddler one-track mind made him focus on his beloved older brother only as he reached out with his small arms. Itachi picked up Sasuke and let him cuddle him even as Sasuke looked up at him with poor adoration a younger sibling had for them older one. Mikoto smiled at her sons as Itachi nodded to him and walked away with Sasuke in his arms. Once Sasuke and Itachi were safely away, much to everyone's surprise including Fugaku himself, Mikoto dashed forward and rushed into his arms. Mikoto's grace and beauty made her seem to gliding across the floor. Fugaku held his wife by her slim waist by instinct even as she wrapped her arms around his neck in a loving embrace. Mikoto cut off whatever Fugaku might have wanted to say by kissing him on the lips briefly before putting her cheek against his neck as she could feel Fugaku's flustered face even as she beamed at him with a loving smile. "Why do you think I would wear a dress like this, dear husband? For you, of course, my love. My heart and soul belong to you, and I am declaring that to everyone here and across the entire world itself," Mikoto declared as she barely registered the gaping faces around them with the adults hiding the curious children's eyes. Fugaku quickly controlled his embarrassed cheeks as he looked down at Mikoto with a quick look of love. "I love you too, but this is public and the party of the Uzumaki clan. This is hardly the place for such affectionate things," Fugaku whispered as Mikoto scoffed. "Like I care what other people think of our marriage. The only person whose opinion matters on my appearance is you, dear husband," Mikoto whispered back dismissively, making Fugaku smile softly at her declaration. Minato looked around even as Tsunade given Jiraiya a bump of the head for gaping at Mikoto in that rather sensual dress and her attractive body in display. He could almost feel Kushina's intense stare and slight amount of killer intent as if she was checking to see if he was staring at her best friend. Minato closed his eyes and gave his wife an easy grin even as Kushina stared suspiciously at him. Minato clapped his hands as all the guests including Fugaku and Mikoto turned around to look at the current Hokage. "All right. On behalf of my family, I would like to extend my gratitude for being here with us on this glorious day," Minato announced to cheers from the entire room. "Yeah. Thanks. It's not every day Natsumi turns 4 years old. This makes this special day even more special, databang," Kushina stated cheerfully in her cute Uzumaki way, with her even using her verbal tick to show how excited she was. Jiraiya and Tsunade gave a chuckle at Kushina's verbal tick while Kakashi smiled from beneath his mask with his visible eye closed to give an eye smile. The children were just chatting happily to each other as the other adults were watching over them proudly. Itachi and Mikoto instantly shared a startled glance at Kushina's statement. "Natsumi-chan's birthday? Not Natsumi-chan and Naruto-kun's birthday?" Mikoto whispered to Fugaku, who looked uncomfortable despite his emotionless face hiding it rather well. "I noticed it too when I came in. It appears no one else remembers or is thinking it's the twins' birthday, not just Natsumi's," Fugaku admitted in a whisper as Mikoto silently growled and her eyes narrowed. "These people? Even his parents? How dare they?" Mikoto hissed as her eyes flickered for the slightest moment into her two-tomo Sharingan due to her anger, but luckily nobody besides her eldest son and husband appeared to notice. Mikoto looked ready to give her best friend and her Hokage a piece of her mind despite it being in the middle of the party. However, before she could, Fugaku grabbed her wrist, preventing her from storming over. "Fugaku!" Mikoto hissed with her briefly looking betrayed her husband was denying her